Shoshie can enter my world. Watch your clothes. And when I'm through,
so it's okay for me to talk at this point because they can hear us, right?
take your time, steady and you can do it right. Shoshie can enter my world. Watch your clothes. And when I'm through, why not have it go? Oh, we paint miniatures. We paint miniatures. We paint miniatures.
Comment with a link.
Turn on tuning in, hear all to say, but watch real closely, enjoy your stay. You'll see me painting from up above, and if you like it, give it mad love. Take your time, steady and you can do it right. Shoshie can enter my world. Watch your clothes, and when I'm through, why not have it go? Take your time, steady and you can do it right. Shoshie can enter my world. Watch your clothes, and when I'm through, why not have it go? We paint miniatures. 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 We paint miniatures.
Hello, we are live, and it is Shoshie from Shoshie's Minis, and welcome everybody. I'm going to move this over here. I am here today with David from ElfQuest, and also he is, let me see here, hold on one second, I'm scripted. Joining me via Discord is David Majewski, Mizajewski, Uber ElfQuest fan, and host of the ElfQuest Show podcast, the voice of Rain the Healer, and the ElfQuest audio movie, which is one of the big reasons why we're here today. And while I paint, Dave and I will be chatting about ElfQuest, and he'll be asking about your questions and what you post in chat. Hey, David.
Hi, Shoshie. I am thrilled to be here, even though I'm just going to be a disembodied voice. I've been like waiting for weeks to get to help you, do this live stream and kind of represent all of the other ElfQuest fans out there and ask all of the questions that I know everyone has. So your work is gorgeous. It's beautiful. I've been a fan, and the fact that you're getting to do this for ElfQuest Minis, which is my love and my passion, and I know yours too.
Big time.
It's just like the biggest treat in the world.
Yay! I can already see there's already a whole bunch of people in chat. So I'm just going to say hi real quick. Amber, Joey, Skyfire, Tauntaton, I think that's how I say your name. Kara, my
yep,
mom is here.
That's Tanya.
Oh, good.
Who has been a guest host with me on the ElfQuest Show podcast.
Yay. Bachelor is my mod. Let's see. Bratling, Ingvar, Thornbreak, there you are. And Kaya. I'm excited. I'm super excited because ElfQuest, I've been an ElfQuest fan since I was 13. I think I found it in the library in my local, public library. Found the graphic novels, and then I just felt I was obsessed with it instantly. And my mom had always been a comic book fan, and so I got her to take me to a comic book store, and that's where I found the big magazine-size black and white issues. So way before anything color came out other than the graphic novels. Yay.
Yeah, similar story for me. I started reading with the actual collected edition, the colored version, but then had my mom take me to the comic book store, and I had to, dig it out for myself. And there was something magical about kind of going on the hunt for it.
Yeah. Okay. So we had a poll with the community over which models we were going to paint. These. Do you want to explain while I get these ready for everybody how these models came about? Because I think a lot of people think maybe they might be available right now, or we just need to clear the air about everything.
Yes, yeah. So we'll jump right to that. No, unfortunately, you cannot purchase these minis that Shoshie is about to paint. You could have a couple of years ago when we were running the crowdfunding campaign for the ElfQuest audio movie. And these minis were specifically designed to be rewards for folks who could support that campaign. And of course, all the supporters, made it possible for us to bring this incredible production called the ElfQuest audio movie, which is available as a free 10-episode podcast on pretty much all the major podcast players. It's got a full cast of characters. It's got a musical score. It's not just an audiobook, which is why we call it an audio movie. It's sort of an audio production with full theatricals. And that's what these mini figures were. And so many fans were able to participate in that and have received their minis. And now Shoshie is going to show us how to paint them. Because I know a lot of ElfQuest fans, they're not necessarily mini painters. And getting to see and hear your expertise, Shoshie, is going to be invaluable.
Yes, I am adjusting my brightness just a smidge so they're not quite the right color I want them on screen just yet. Let's see. We're going to have to fight between exposure. That's probably how they look in real life, but because I want you guys to be able to see, they're going to be a little tiny bit washed out. So this is Tree Stump. I've already painted him. This is my own set because yes, I was an early backer, and this is Greymung. And I don't think Thornbreak's seen this one yet, but I started on Moonshade.
Oh my gosh, no, I have not.
She's really cute. I love this size. Now these are a lot smaller than a typical mini. Let me see if I can't find a mini that's comparable so people can get an idea of how big these are.
Yeah, so I had a question about that. And you kind of just answered it. So these new ElfQuest minis they're a little bit smaller than the standard, or okay,
yeah, I'm gonna get it. Here's the Kingdom Death mini. Wait, that's not probably the appropriate one. Let's see. All right, here's one. This is an Eldar figure. And so you can get it. Here's an Eldar figure, and then there's Greymung next to him.
Okay.
And then here's the ElfQuest figure. So this figure right here that is on the right is probably the size of a regular size mini that most people are used to. And so these ElfQuests are like half that size.
So Ace of Thorns is saying they're scale appropriate, so that's kind of interesting.
Yes.
So they are ElfQuest elves, which are maybe about 4 feet tall on average, and so most of them anyway, the Wolf Riders, but some of them like Savah maybe are a little bit taller. So so that's actually a really interesting note. Thank you, Ace of Thorns, for that. And while I'm looking at the chat, Folks, put your questions in the chat
Yeah.
on YouTube because that's one of the reasons why I'm here, so that Shoshie, while she's painting, doesn't have to keep reading the chat. And I will be monitoring the chat and trying to pull out your questions and ask her as we get into it here.
Yes. So first of all, I'm going to talk about some of the tools that I use. Now, if you're a beginner, don't worry about all this. You can use whatever you have. If you have miniature paints, that's awesome. If you don't, you only have craft paints, that's totally fine. So I have here, this is a wet palette, and I'm going to put some new paper down on it. Wet palettes are not necessary to paint miniatures, but they are, for me, because I am a professional painter, this is what I do for my full-time job. I like them because, here, let me pull this back so you can see this a little better. So here's the wet palette. It's not going to be in focus because I've got it set so that you can see the minis, not the palette. But yeah, so this has a sponge and some water. It keeps the paint moist while I'm painting. Another tool I'm going to be using today is a hobby holder. This one happens to be by wrathcore.com, but there's other ones out there. And what this does is I can set my hand on this bar while I'm holding the mini, and because it's nice and ergonomic, my hands don't get tired as quickly, which can be really good if you. This one is probably going to be helpful for beginners, because what you don't want is your fingers sitting here like this, and the longer you're holding it, the more stressed out these little tiny muscles in your fingers are going to get. You're going to get sore. So that's why I got a holder.
That is definitely a pro tip and something I didn't even think about. Shoshie, where do you get your supplies? I mean, is this something you have a good supplier or a brand or anything like that folks should look into?
Before I say that, I'm going to say for beginners, you can use a medicine bottle or a cork, anything that is going to have a little bit bigger thing to hold on to. Medicine bottles are perfectly fine. And then I have this, which is double-sided poster tape. It's really nice. And you can just put this on the top of your medicine bottle and peel that and then stick your mini right on it, and there you go. So I get my stuff all over the place. This company that makes these is a German company, so they're at pkpro.de. There we go, pkpro.de. Game Envy is another company that has them. Most hobby stores have something. Most hobby stores like miniature hobby game shops. But this is really nice because I can just stick it in here and have it in progress. Like the most important thing, you don't want to be touching your mini all the time because the oils in your hands will sometimes make it so that when you put a layer of paint over those oils, then it will peel up and stuff. Yes. Trahan says it's a good way to paint with a dry environment. That's for the wet palette, absolutely. And before time, we hoarded old wooden and plastic cotton reels. Yes. Yes. So these are all the tips. See, the chat already knows the tips.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, for any ElfQuest fans who are new to mini painting and maybe have never watched one of Shoshie's live streams before, read the comments too, because there's a lot of experienced mini painters in the comments adding tips. So
Amber, it should be in focus now. I had to pull the cam down. I had it raised so that people could see the wet palette. So I want to point out something on the mini's eyes. So the way the sculptor made them, they're kind of, this one, I feel like Redlance has his eyes closed, but he may not. But one thing that I did on Tree Stump is I kind of used my hobby knife and I kind of cut that bald shape off so that it's flat. Oh, there he goes. Sorry, I was off cam. Yeah, let me know if I'm off cam too. Yeah, the hobby holder is super helpful. Anything you can to stick the mini to hold things.
So I want to go back to what you were just saying, Shoshie, with the eyes. I know that in the sculpt, the eyes were made kind of deliberately a little buggy, so that again, ElfQuest elves have big eyes, and then also just for the scale But I love what you just said. Like, don't be afraid to, to kind of tweak these where you want to, and it's okay to do that if you want to shave a little piece off here or there
Yes,
to make
exactly.
it work for you.
So right now I'm working on Nightfall's eyes. I'm just showing you how I would do it. And it's really as simple as that. I just kind of did a little sliver. On the back of the models, because these are 3D printed, sometimes you'll find these little, I call them like warts and scars is what I call them from 3D printing. And you can just cut those out with the hobby knife or scrape it.
How much pressure should you apply?
Well, enough so you don't cut through the model. But
well, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how much pressure are you applying?
Not much.
That's maybe a better question. Okay.
And I tend to like to scrape rather than cut sometimes because you can go overboard. So she had a little wart on the back of her arm. Most of the bumps on these. Oh, I'm not on cam. Yeah, David, if you see me off cam, let me know.
Okay.
Because this is, I'm going to pull this down just a squidge. And yeah, here's another one right here. There we go. That's a little wart. And I noticed, if you can see this, on the bottom of her chin, there's a little something there. And so part of the starting painting minis is doing some of this cleanup. Even with metal minis, there's going to be a seam line, like a mold line, and you'll want to scrape with that. And there's...
Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
Oh, I just we have a question from Tanya in the chat. Is how did you become a professional mini painter? I'm curious too.
Well, I was originally a watercolor painter, and I've always been an artist. In fact, I thought I was going to illustrate for ElfQuest when I was in college. I was really trying, but then I learned that I can't draw the same thing over and over again and make it look the same.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a skill set in and of itself, is doing sequential art, right?
Mm-hmm. So I went to school for art, and when I've always been a nerd. I mean, that's kind of part of my being in ElfQuest, is just being into comic books and fantasy and role playing. And so I found a gaming convention when I was in college that I went to, and there was a contest for like a speed painting contest. Who could paint a mini the fastest and the best? And because I already had my art background, I was able to paint it the fastest and best. And the prize was another mini. So that was what got me into it. And then what got me into it professionally was I wanted to paint miniatures, but I didn't really want to pay for them. And so I started saying, like, I started telling people, like, I'll paint your minis, for a service, right? Right. And that is kind of how it all started. And then when I realized I sold a miniature on eBay for $115, that was when I realized, like, this is way more profitable than my watercolors, because my watercolors at the time, I was selling 16 by 20 framed watercolors for $250.
Right.
And that, like, I did the math.
Yeah, totally. Well, okay. So this begs the question: should ElfQuest fans out there want to hire you to paint their minis? How does that work?
So you'll reach out to me either via my website or any of the social media that you find me on. I'm at Shoshie's Minis on pretty much all my social media sites. Yeah, #NerdLife. And just ask me, tell me what you'd like me to paint. I can give you a quote. With ElfQuest Minis, since I'm not a fan of painting the same thing over and over and over again. So I think what I'm probably going to do is put a cap. Like, I might paint Redlance twice and each one of the minis twice, right? So, like, if you're interested in having me be your artist, then if you agree to the quote that I do, then I probably will only paint that many so many times. Does that make sense?
That's totally fair, yeah. And so, two things to say to that. Number one, fans take note. And number 2, I have dibs.
Yeah. Yes, and
um,
Bachelor
now
said
that's incredible.
all the links are in the description below in this video.
Awesome. Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's really amazing. That you know you're that's part of what you do, and that it's a resource that ElfQuest fans can tap into if they feel like they're just too intimidated by this. But I know by the end of this tutorial that you're about to do,
Yeah.
people are not going to feel intimidated.
I hope not. At least, you know, feel like you can give it a try. The other thing is, if you really want to be precious about your ElfQuest minis, get some Reaper minis, some Reaper Bones models, and practice on that first. And then once you feel like your muscle memory is in a good place and you're ready to go with the ElfQuest ones, you'll feel a lot more confident about it.
That is a really, really great point. You know, there's no harm in picking up some inexpensive ones and just painting if you want to save for ElfQuest. And you know what? I do think, I'm looking at Redlance, and I do think his eyes are closed.
I think so too.
But I love that, you know, paint is a whole other element to these, and there's really no reason that you couldn't paint his eyes open.
Right, exactly. I want to show you. So what I've started here is I primed it with gray. Some people prime with black. Some people prime with white. Each color is going to give you a different result with your canvas. Imagine your mini as your canvas, right? So I've used gray here because it's easiest to see. And I also feel like everybody out there can mix their own grays pretty easily. If you want to use a spray primer, I recommend like Krylon flat automotive paint. It's not expensive, and what you'll do here, I'm going to show you 1 second here. So what you'll do is you'll hold your Krylon paint here and hold your mini out here, so that way it gets a dusting. You don't need to have it completely 100%, because if you get up here with it, it will flood the mini and it will fill in all the details. Oh, cool.
We just got are you going to answer
I just noticed Jason Weeby is in the chat, and he's the sculptor for these minis, and I'm really geeked out now because he's like always been one of my favorite sculptors, and my style goes really well with his, which is another reason why I was super excited about him sculpting these.
Hi, Jason. The minis look amazing.
Definitely. Everybody follow Jason. I believe that, I don't know if you have, do you have social media, Jason? Please feel free to tell people. I don't think you can post links, but you can tell people what your social is. All right, let's see. I'm going to flip back cameras. So once you get this gray on, what I recommend is get a little bit of white, and let me see if I have a white here. Here we go. I happen to be sponsored by Acryl by Monument Hobbies, so I use primarily their paints, but I would probably use their paints even if I wasn't sponsored because I really like them. All right, it's a little washed out. Sorry about the, let me see if I can do a lighting thing trick. Ah, there we go. All right, so here's my white paint. I'm gonna have a paper towel. This is you can use a makeup brush. You can use a dry brush like this. And I'm going to wipe off most of the paint so that when I go to, I'm going to brush down just so I can see some of my details a little bit easier. See? And this is a little bit of underpainting. So we're going to get to see our details a little bit more. And we're creating that white is going to be like a highlights for our canvas.
Very cool.
This is also a really great technique to learn for beginners. You can paint a whole mini like this. All right, so you can kind of see.
You're a bit high, Shoshie.
Hello. Oh, I'm high. Yes, thank you. That's going to pop in every now and then when I'm off cam. There we go. Perfect. All right, there we go. All right, so we've got, so we can see all the details really well now. I'm going to clean off that brush. I would like to know, Jason, if you want to tell us in chat, how are you approached? Or if you know anything about this, David, you can share as well. Because I've been curious.
Approach.
How did they know about Jason? How did they know?
Oh, Jason will know more than I will. We worked with folks from a group called the Fantasy Network. And I think they probably had some connections and already knew Jason, but I'm not 100% sure how that connection got made.
Gotcha. All right, I'm adding this. Is a peach color. This particular color is called Tan Flesh. And I'm gonna put it on my palette, and you should do this whether or not you're using a wet palette or not. But take a little water over here, and then thin the paint out so that it's thinner than it was, but not completely see-through. And we're going to make some base coats. And we're going to do thinner coats to begin. And you can cover his whole eyes and everything. I'm starting with the skin first because it's the most, like I start from the inside out. So the most inner part of the mini, and then painting the skin, the clothes afterward, because as we paint the layers, we can clean up mistakes as we go. And mini painting is one of those things that, you know, don't worry if you're not like super great just to start, because it is almost like a sport, and it's muscle memories. There's little tiny muscles in your hands. And you can see I'm kind of being a little bit messy, but you can see I'm going to go over that vest later. And it's
I'm sorry. I've got a good question from Simone Farber in the chat who says, so if a non-artsy person wanted to start doing minis, what would be the startup cost for basic supplies like paint, brushes, light, etc.?
That's a good question.
If that's not too obnoxious a question. I don't think it's an obnoxious question.
It's not an obnoxious question. It is difficult for me to answer because it's been so long since I had to have a startup kit. So let's see. And of course, anyone in chat who kind of is sort of a hobby painter who already can give an example of what they've spent is welcome to. Because anything that I say is probably going to be very different from the average person.
Right. I mean, like, what does just like a tube of decent quality paint cost?
So these paints, I believe, are between $3 and $4 a piece.
Okay.
And the Citadel paints can get very expensive. They're like, they can be sometimes up to $8 a piece, $7 to $8 a piece, but they're imported from England, whereas these are in the United States. So it also depends on where you get your paints from.
Right.
But Citadel is in almost all of the shops that have Warhammer, and you can always get there's beginner paint sets at Reaper that I'm really a fan of. You can and it comes with everything. It comes with brushes. It comes with paint.
Okay. That
might even
is
come with
something that
yeah, might even come with
I'm
the mini.
definitely yeah, I might look into that myself because I don't have any of this, and I definitely want to give it a try.
Yeah.
And you know, but I think I probably am gonna try to get you to paint at least one of mine.
Sure.
Noelle Meyer has shared some good
Noelle.
numbers in the chat as well. So hi, Noelle.
Noelle is a fantastic mini painter as well, and she's a huge ElfQuest fan. We have a lot in common.
Love it. We're everywhere. So I'm just scanning here to see if we. Oh, my other question was about like, in terms of cost, you know, brushes, because I know that brushes, can, you know, just in general, can be kind of expensive, and I feel like that is where it pays to, you know, to spend a little bit more.
It
but
does.
I don't know if that's true.
You
Okay.
kind of get what you pay for with brushes. Nowadays, it's much easier. This is a Rosemary company. I have other brushes from Monument. I have brushes from Game Envy. These Game Envy and Monument for U.S. companies are really affordable and pretty nice brushes. And I used to buy like stuff like Winsor and Newton, but the quality has not kept up in the times.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And so
'Cause
if
that's the name that I always think of as like a pretty decent quality, but I guess not.
they are, but you know what? For what I'm doing, I'm so hard on brushes. I'd rather get a mid-level brush that I can afford to buy over and over again because I'm
Right.
probably going to wreck it anyway, right?
Well, that's that right there. I mean, this is why we're doing this. That is a pure pro tip, right?
Mhm.
So that it makes a lot of sense. But I could see it going the other way too. That somebody might say, "Oh, buy the best one ever." But but getting to hear from you that that's really not how you would do it. That's
Right.
amazing.
Well, and that's the thing. Brushes are so personal. Not everybody is going to like the same brush. I like a very springy brush. So see how this one is springing back and forth?
Mm-hmm.
This Monument brush is it's still springy, but it's a little bit less springy. But for a different, this might be great for base coating, right?
Got it. Now, do you have an array of brushes, or do you use the same? Yeah. Okay. Can you talk about that?
I have like just cheap hobby brushes. I have a little bit nicer level acrylic. These are both acrylic brushes. This one's like a cheap one that you can get in a bag of 50 for $10. I have nice, this is like a specialty brush. This is a dry brush. It's also called a smoosh brush. This
Okay.
one's by Rosemary Company. And what else here?
So it's just like any other type of painting. You have a variety of brushes with different sizes and shapes to get the different jobs that you need done.
This one is a sable detail brush from Monument. And see, it's much smaller.
Yeah. Noelle just shared another great tip.
Yes.
If you want your brushes to last longer, make sure your paint doesn't end up more than halfway up the bristles and does not get left sitting in water.
Yes.
Definitely a pro tip.
Never put your brush in the cup and just leave it. That's a big rule. I am not as good as, like, I'm always getting paint up into the ferrule. When paint gets up into the ferrule, that's when it kind of cakes in there and it will spread the bristles out and it'll ruin the point over time. And I'm not as good about my brush maintenance in that way.
That's okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to say again for any folks that haven't watched one of Shoshie's live streams, we're probably going to be here for quite a while, and the whole thing will be, posted to her YouTube afterward. So if you're here now, but you have to go run and do an errand, or you can't stay the whole time or whatever, don't worry. We'll share across all of the ElfQuest socials, and I'm sure, Shoshie, you'll be sharing it on yours as well.
Yes.
Just letting folks know that the whole thing is there and you can watch it at your leisure.
Yes. So you can see there's some places on the model where you can kind of see the primer through the paint. I wait till the next layer is completely dry before I go back over and touch that up. I missed an ear down here. I'm really nearsighted, and so I have to paint without my glasses on, but it also means that I can't always look at my computer screen.
Yeah.
So it makes yeah.
We'd rather have you look at the mini.
Yeah.
So you're not using any kind of magnification when you're doing this?
No, I'm so nearsighted that my eyes are kind of naturally magnifying.
Okay.
All right, so this is a basic base coat, and what I'm going to do next, because I want to show people some beginner tips, is use it's called a glaze. Is it called a glaze? No, it's called a wash. Sorry, there's different terms. This is, you can tell it's a little bit more liquidy it's got some medium in it so that the pigment goes down into the recesses. And this one is from Citadel. It's called Reikland Fleshshade. And I'm going to just brush this. And you're going to be able to see how it kind of flows into the recesses and brings out a lot of the details.
Right, right.
And gives it some shadows too.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm most curious to see how it kind of evolves as you paint, because, you know, myself never having done this, I could totally see like getting one coat on and having it kind of look flat. So it's like, you know, getting the shading in and making it feel, you know, 3D is to me the thing that kind of intimidates me. So this is great. Amber Dion wants to know, Shoshie, which of the ElfQuest minis are you most looking forward to painting, or have you already started on them?
I already, yes. Mad Coil was I forgot to show Mad Coil. Mad Coil was the one I was the most excited about. And there he is. He came out exactly how I wanted him. You can see he's kind of got this color shifting pigment on him. There's better pictures on the ElfQuest and my own websites, but I want to show how I did this. This was a special technique. This is nail art pigment, and you can tell that when you put it, and you can just brush it right on, but see how it shifts. And all I did was I just did that. I just went over it with a brush and brushed this on him. And it gives him that kind of shimmery. And then I also just used, this is by Lumiere by Jacquard. You can get this set of like kind of color shifting paints for $10 on Amazon. This one shifts gold and yellow, and I did that for his little scale bumps.
So neat.
Mm-hmm.
It really looks gorgeous.
Yeah, I was so excited that they had a Mad Coil mini, because I didn't expect it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, the audio movie covers the first 5 issues of ElfQuest, or what, you know, traditionally has been known as "quote unquote" Book 1 for the collected editions. And you know, the Mad Coil story is a key part of that 5-issue story arc, which is really kind of the introduction to ElfQuest. And so, of course, you know, like, you know, the Mad Coil and the Grey Mung that you showed earlier, those were stretch goal rewards, and they really helped us. You know, people really went in for them, and they really helped us raise a good bit of money for the ElfQuest audio movie and the crowdfunding. So Tanya has another question, and I think this is such an important one. Are there different flesh shades, or do you have to customize them on your own? And I know you were going to address this at some point, especially as we get to the next mini, but since she asked it, I figured I'd throw it out there now.
No, there are different, and you can also mix your own. I'm going to just do a really quick how to mix your own flesh tones. So let's start with the mahogany. You're probably going to be like, what? So let's do a mahogany, and we've got a little yellow ochre. Oops, that needs shaking. Sometimes these need shaking. This is like medium.
Going a bit high on the camera again.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh, no. I need to give it a really good shake. Oh, cool. Yeah. Jason says they added the larger pieces to sweeten the deal.
There you go. That's right. And they sweetened it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've got those two. When you mix the mahogany mixed with the yellow ochre, you're going to get this kind of tan color. And then we can add a little bit of orange. Just a smidge of orange. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. Now, I'm going to add, I don't want to add white because white is really desaturating, but I will add some ivory. Actually,
wait, explain that.
Yeah. It'll get really chalky if I add white, but an ivory And ivory basically is white with just a little smidge of yellow or green in it.
It's not just that pure white.
Yeah. All right, so now I have a version of a peach. It's kind of yellowy. So now I'm going to add just a smidge of, I think I'm going to add just a smidge. Let's add a smidge of red and see what happens. It's just going to be the tiniest amount of red because red is really powerful.
So you're just going, you know,
There we go.
In your experience, this is sort of a blend of colors that would result in a particular color that would work for a particular skin tone. And you would do this if you're mixing a custom color for whatever skin tone, you know, you wanted for your particular character,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they do. I mean, are there skin tones that are labeled as such across a spectrum from the actual paint manufacturers?
Yes, I do have one beef with that, in that they will call, so one of the things I like about Monument, so this is beige red, but it's also a skin tone color, right? But guess what's not on the bottle? Flesh.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so many colors of flesh, right? We shouldn't just call all the peaches flesh.
Right.
That's my only beef.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, that's sad, but it's also sadly not surprising. But
right.
You know, I think the more of us are talking about it, the more that it's a good thing.
There it is.
Yeah.
No, but they've started moving away from that. And I think it's really good. But I'm going to show the different, like just here, you've got pretty much the makings, even with the burgundy and the orange, you've got the makings for almost everything. You know, here you mix a little bit of orange with the burgundy, you get various shades of brown. You've got the ochre to add a little bit of yellow if you want a little bit more yellow color for. But yeah, I'd say you've got your base burgundy, orange, a tiny bit of red, and an ivory or a white. Yeah, Crayola exactly did the same thing.
Bratling says, Suntoucher ain't Crayola flesh from my childhood, that's for sure.
Right.
And that's exactly right. And you know, the you know, we actually, you know, specifically made sure that that Shoshie was going to paint one of the Sunfolk, because we wanted to show
different skin tones.
Different skin tones in the painting process, for partly for that reason, so that it wasn't all just, you know, more pink skinned, you know, and that's it. So
all right, so I've got, now that this is dried, you can really see how that has really helped, especially on the arm. You can see that little dimple right there in his arm. You can see, you know, the mouth has its own definition now. Now I can leave this, which I probably will, but you want this dry before you start painting the rest. So now I'm going to go ahead and...
So how long, what's, you know, sort of, what's a good time frame to wait to know that something's really dry? And can you use like a hair dryer?
Yeah.
Is that recommended? Or
I use hair dryer all the time.
Okay.
And especially if you have one with a button with a cool setting, like a chill button.
Okay.
And so, okay, so now I've got my base color again, because we've already tinted it down with the wash. This acts as its own highlight. This is the original color. Look at the difference.
Yeah.
And I can come in here very carefully and I'm just painting the volumes. So imagine like a hill, right? Here's my mouse. A hill. You're going to paint just the top of the hill, right? Not the whole hill. So imagine like shingles on a roof, right? This is the second row of shingles. And I leave that shadow there as my first row of shingles.
Okay.
This is going to be really tricky, the little tiny fingers.
Trahan wants to know what character it is. I'm a new fan to ElfQuest. I don't remember all the character names. Well, first of all, welcome to the ElfQuest fandom.
Yeah.
Shade and Sweetwater. The character that Shoshie is painting right now is Redlance. He's one of the Wolf Riders. He happens to be my favorite elf, so I am thrilled.
He's one of
that
my
he was
two.
one of the ones that that won the voting. So Makarov Djokovic wants to know: is it easier with dry brushing? I'm not even sure what that means.
So do you remember when I had that brush in the beginning when I did that white kind of buffing it? That's dry brushing, and you can, like I said, you can paint a whole model that way, and it can be easier, but it also is just one way of painting things, right? Like, so I try to show lots of different ways of painting things so that people can feel like they have different tools.
Mm-hmm.
There are people out there, as with almost any hobby that nerds get obsessed over, that say, like, you can only do it this one way, and I don't believe that. Don't believe in gatekeeping, you know.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So because the paints I'm using are a matte paint, they came out with this clear glaze and wash, and so I'm going to use this. It's just going to help my paint flow, and it'll also add a little bit of moisture to my paint too. That isn't water. There we go. That's much better. See, with matte paints, the lighter the paint, the chalkier things can get.
Mm-hmm.
Something like these small ElfQuest figures, I think dry brushing is going to be kind of tricky because they're still little.
Right. Trahan, if I just see that you've posted that your wife has all of the issues of ElfQuest, so that's amazing. It won't be hard for you to dive in, but for anybody else out there, Dark Horse Comics is the publisher of ElfQuest, and they put out a really beautiful omnibus series called The Complete ElfQuest. So these are huge, like, if you remember phone books, they're huge, they're that big. They're giant collections of ElfQuest in black and white, which a lot of the original ElfQuest comics issues were published in black and white. So they really kind of showcase the art as it was, kind of originally published for the earlier series. But anyway, they're affordable. They're in print. You can get them from wherever comics or even books are sold. So you should seek those out if you're looking to catch up. They cover the volumes 1 through 7 cover the entire canon story of Cutter's hero's journey, the main quest, from 1978 all the way up to 2018. And then they also have collected editions of the most recent series, which is called Stargazer's Hunt, which the second volume of which just came out I guess it's 2023, so I have to say last year. And so we definitely want folks to check those out and get caught up. You can also visit the ElfQuest website, which is elfquest.com, and there's a bunch of back issues that are up there in a free online comics reader. It's a really great way to just kind of get acquainted with the story. But we know when you do that, you're going to want to go out and buy the books too. So,
all right, so here we go. We've got the base coat, we've got a highlight coat, and now we've got the base coat, shade, and highlight. Yeah.
Draco Dawn just said, "I am loving your flesh,
Shoshie." Yeah, flesh tones. Yes.
Yeah, they meant flesh tones.
Okay.
I'm just like over here giggling to myself.
So now, rather than wash all over all of the nice highlights, I'm going to go ahead and do what I call pinpoint shading, where I'm taking my Burgundy and I'm going to basically draw on some of the details that I know, because I am familiar enough with Wendy's style. I kind of know how she draws things. I can go ahead and put in a little bit of line work here.
So two things. Number one, I just mentioned the the free comics online, many of those are from the colored editions that have been published over the years. So if you're looking for color reference and you don't happen to own a particular volume of ElfQuest that has the character that you're painting in color, you can definitely go to the ElfQuest website and scroll through. You can also just Google them and Google the character's name, and you should find all sorts of images. My question though, Burgundy, like that seems like a very bold, dark color.
It is.
And so I'm curious about, that I'm just curious that that's what you've chosen versus, I don't know, maybe like a softer brown or something like that.
It's going to read as brown in these shadows. And also it's in that same family with the peach flesh tones, right? So it's definitely not going to be too harsh. I don't use a lot of black because it flattens things out and it looks very cartoony.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also love it too because one of Wendy Paynes' kind of artistic signatures when she's working in color, I don't know if there's an actual term for it, but she uses oftentimes colored lines. So
yeah, I've noticed that.
Colored inking technique, if you will. So rather than just do like straight up, black and white lines like you see conventionally in comic art, and then have colors, sort of over that, the actual, what were black lines will be done in a variety of shades, and it gives it this just sort of beautiful, lush, like luminosity.
Yes.
That I think is just kind of so signature. It works so well with ElfQuest, which is this fantasy story, and you have these elves, which are these kind of ethereal, and even the ones that are kind of more burly and brusque still have this sort of magical quality about them, and that technique, I think, really kind of reinforces that. And so I'm thinking of that as you're painting this, it's kind of echoing that whole idea.
Oh yeah, so because I used to be so obsessed with ElfQuest, I drew it constantly, and I would study her work, and it really affected my use of color. It affected, how I do lines. I think I even told you how when I print, I use the font from ElfQuest. It's kind of how I print. It's kind of not exactly, but
yeah,
that's where
amazing.
It was. Yeah.
You're not alone. And folks, if you in the chat post, just comment if you tried to, draw the ElfQuest characters, or if you taught yourself how to draw by mimicking Wendy. I know I did, and I spent probably the better part of my age 10 through 18 just drawing ElfQuest. All fan art, of course, but yeah, I love that about us because I think it's something that a lot of ElfQuest fans do.
So I'm starting with my darkest color for his hair. This is going to be all of the shadows for his hair. So that's why I'm starting with Burgundy. So I'm having trouble seeing around his little tree here. That's the tricky part.
So Laura Lee Wilson had a question about Savah's gown, and
oh yeah,
Savah's the next character that we're going to paint, but so we can talk more about it. But she was asking, she's saying, I'm thinking of using a prismatic nail polish for an opalescent effect.
Yeah.
Would be safe for these, for the material that these figures are made of?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think you're gonna want to do thin layers though, because it's gonna clump a little bit, because it's not, nail polish isn't made with pigments. It's got like little glitters, right? And little pieces of mica.
Okay.
And so you want to start and paint it really thin if you can.
Right. Yeah. Noelle actually commented that, Bratling says that nail polish seems like it would be very thick. So
yeah.
That's kind of tracking with what you're saying, Shoshie.
Yeah.
Simone is asking though, is nail polish doesn't seem like it's made to last long enough. So that raises a bigger question.
Yeah.
Do you ever have to do touch-ups? Like, is this paint them once and put them on a shelf and they'll last forever? Like, how easily does this style of painting kind of chip or?
Yeah, I think nail polish would actually be more durable than the acrylics, but it's not meant for this. It's not really meant for painting on miniatures. So I don't know how it's going to behave exactly. I keep let me see if I have some here. I have some spray varnish. I've got different kinds of varnish. Where is it? Oh. I use Tester's Dull Coat. Here it is. I also have, this is my favorite here. Oh, this isn't, this is a primer, but there's different kinds. Let me see if I can find the actual, here. This is my favorite. So these are the two spray varnishes that I use. This one is my favorite. It's Mr. Super Clear. It's not cheap, and it's imported from Japan, but it's the Mr. Super Clear flat. You got to make sure you get the flat. Yeah.
And that basically will protect.
Yes.
The paint.
Yes.
It'll make it kind of more durable.
And this is Tester's, and it's, you get the flat coat is what you want. But you can see, like, I like the Super Clear because you get a lot more per can.
Okay. So the original question, I think, was more about using the nail polish to get that sort of shimmery look. And I know with Mad Coil, you were talking about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
So
they already make. Yeah. So they already make. Let me show you this. This is like I said, the Lumiere by Jacquard makes. They basically make miniature paint with this color shifting pigment in it. So
amazing.
Let me show you. So you can see how it kind of shifts from kind of a gold to a green.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about either using that for Savah or using some pastels and doing little dots with that for kind of her sparkles. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with her just yet.
I love the fact that you're going to kind of invent and figure it out as you're painting it. I mean, that's like just the mark of a brilliant artist, I think.
It's also a mark of me being lazy and not figuring it out in advance.
No, I think that's cool. And Battlelore says, look for color shifting acrylic paints online if you prefer a made-for-industry product, although the range can be limited. So thanks for that. And so Steve Scott has a great question. Any news on when we can buy the minis?
Oh.
So we talked about this at the top, but if folks weren't here, the minis, unfortunately, are not for sale. They were meant as exclusive backer rewards for the crowdfunding campaign, the ElfQuest audio movie, and the last few months they've been delivering to all the backers. And so, they were meant to kind of be special just for that. And thank you to everybody who supported that campaign. It was really the minis that I think probably drove the majority of the pledges.
Really? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, there were incredible art prints and a bunch of other neat rewards, but by far it was the minis that people, really wanted. So I know that's kind of disappointing. And so what I can say is this, Steve, back in the 80s, there were 6 sets of
Raul Partha
miniatures that were made by Raul Partha. And Shoshie, I know that you just recently shared you have painted those as well, and so that but I mentioned those because you can still find them pretty regularly on places like eBay, and I'm sure some folks are going to end up eBaying and reselling these newer minis as well. And then I guess big picture, I can't speak for anything that's going to be coming down the line out of ElfQuest. From Warp Graphics, but I do know that Wendy and Richard Pini are constantly looking for new opportunities to bring new ElfQuest things to the world, and so maybe down the line there will be some more minis that are more available. I don't know, but in the meantime, I would try to seek out some of those older Raul Partha ones. They're made out of metal, and they're actually a little bit smaller than these, but
yeah, they are. They're
very
question. Tiny, and because they're old, sometimes the metal has been worn out and it's not as high detail as it used to be. I want to point out that these cards came with my minis, and each mini has its own kind of trading card kind of thing. And what I'm going to do is look at I study the artwork to figure out what the colors are. And look right here, I'm going to show, there's my burgundy right there in the shadow. And then I've got a darker orange and then a lighter orange for the final highlight. So we've got 3 different colors in his hair. And if you look at the skin, there is even different colors there's a magenta and there's a slight purple and there's, let's see, that looks kind of like a darker orangey. But if I could do this on stream, I could not do this on stream, but I could do all these different color variations in the skin tones, on my own. And I would probably do that just so that I could make it look as close to Wendy art as I could.
Right. And is that just because of the time factor that you'd really have
It's
to spend a lot
time,
of
yeah,
just-
it's time, and it'd be super boring for you to watch, and I have to get really close to the mini to be able to see it.
I don't know if we think it's boring, but we can appreciate that, we don't have you for like 10 hours to do this for us, so.
Right, exactly. All right, and so I am going to fix one little thing on his forehead here. Get that line extra super thin. All right, so now we've got the base coat on his hair. I feel like a reddish needs to be added to the burgundy as the next color. Now, again, this is similar to the way I did it before. I'm kind of using the side of my brush, and this is called overbrushing. It's similar to dry brushing, but you're using more wet paint involved with it. And I'm catching all of the volumes in his hair so that he's got some, shadows within the hair. And he's got little braids, which you're going to very carefully, very lightly. See, I don't even know if I can do it. I might have to go back and pick out details with that. Might have to do that with my highlights. Okay.
So Draco Dawn Stars wants to know what you thought of the ElfQuest audio movie.
Oh, I really loved it. It's like you're there. The voices were just, it was like, I think it was Skywise. I can't remember which character for sure it was, but there was at least one actor who I was like, that's how I always heard it in my head. I think it was Skywise.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
Osric
wow.
Chow, I thought, was the perfect Skywise. Yeah, it's really interesting because, my observation is that not every character sounds like what I, hear them as in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay because there's like no way to match everybody's
Mm-hmm.
creative imagination in their head when you're casting characters. But what I can say is that every single character was perfect for the role.
Yes.
Even if they sounded different than the way that I thought. Like Picknose is one of them. Picknose the Troll.
Yes.
Who was voiced by Robert Picardo of Star Trek fame.
Yeah.
And he does this amazing job, and he gives Picknose this whole dimensionality that I never even imagined in my ear, and it works perfectly, even though it doesn't sound anything like I thought he would have sounded. So that's the beauty of these like interpretations and adaptations to me. And I think that goes for minis too. Like if you wanted to paint your minis and kind of go off script a little bit and give Redlance different color clothing or hair or that kind of thing.
Yes.
I think that would be totally fine.
Definitely. Well, and he's got different
creative.
outfits throughout the series, so you might decide to change and give him one from, the second book.
Yep.
Or
That's right. Yep. Now, Redlance generally sticks with the same kind of green and brown color palette, which makes sense for him as a plant shaper. But there are other characters that kind of change it up. Dewshine often is in sort of like doe skin, kind of beiges and tans, but she has worn pink, she has worn blue over the course of the comic. Clearbrook has changed her color palette a lot as well, from the greens and the doe skin color to navy blue and tan to sort of like a bronzy orange gold. That's what she's kind of wearing in modern times. So yeah, the characters, some of them anyway, really do change their color palette themselves in the comic.
Mm-hmm. So you can see now I've got this bright orange on his hair, and I feel like it's a little bit harsh. So I'm going to take the next color down. So it's like 2 steps up, and then I'm going to just glaze with just the thinnest amount over the top of that orangey.
Okay.
It'll kick it back down into, so it's not quite so intense.
Kara Brinkman Adams says, "Thank you so much for giving me even more inspiration to try my hand at this."
Yay.
That is why we're here, Kara. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
And I always tell people that if you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong. So don't make paint, like I said, practice with other minis if you want your ElfQuest minis to be brushes. Practice with those first, but then make sure you're having fun. Don't try to paint a perfect mini.
I love that advice because I'm over here like putting all of this pressure on myself, and I'm sure everyone else is too.
I tell this story. I can't remember. I think I heard it on a TED Talk or something, but there was a teacher, and he decided to tell his students, he had 2 classes, and one was class A. He told all the students in the class, go ahead, and I want in order to get an A in this class, everybody needs to paint the best painting you can, or make the best pot that you can. I'm putting it down a couple greens for his clothing right now. And then the second class, class B, he told them, he's like, okay, your grade is going to be based on how many quantity pots that you can make. All right. So guess which class at the end of the year made the best pots?
The ones who did the quantity.
Yeah. Because they had the freedom to just make, and they were able to make as many as they want, and they learned as they went, and they got better as they went. Whereas the people who are trying to make this perfect pot maybe made one pot the whole year, and it, or threw away every pot that wasn't perfect, right?
That's amazing, and it is really, really true.
I think it goes for anything in life that you want to be good at.
It's good advice for sure. So can you talk just a little bit for folks that maybe aren't artists themselves, just general kind of color theory, or the process of putting the darks in first and then the light first, not that you have to get sort of a college level.
Well, so
sorry, I got a dust in my throat there. I was just choking. And not that you have to give a dissertation about it, or that you have deep expertise or whatever, but just general tips about just adding highlights and shadows and things like that.
So generally, acrylic paint is opaque, and so for that reason, it's generally good rule of thumb to paint from dark to light. So your lightest color is on the top. I used to be a watercolorist, and it was complete opposite, because you want the white of the paper to actually be your luminosity to, so you're painting from light to dark with watercolor. You can do it either way with acrylics, but I think because you're layering a lot, that painting from dark to light works the best.
Yeah, Skyfire is saying the same thing. So slowly building from darker to lighter.
And make sure that between each layer it's dry. I mean, you can wet blend it to an extent, but when you're just starting out, let it dry. So I'm working on his vest. If that was still drying, if I didn't have a hairdryer, if my paints didn't dry quickly enough, I would go ahead and I'd work on something else while I was waiting for that to dry.
Clarence Oddbody has a good question too. What are the differences between painting metal minis versus non-metal or resin ones?
Well, okay, so for these 3D printed minis, there's sometimes these little print lines, and so it's helpful to add a little layer of maybe clear nail polish or clear gloss varnish to fill in those lines for you. With resin, you're going to get a lot more detail, but it's going to be more brittle, and then you're also not going to be able to file things, because you'll get file marks in resin.
That file marks would be almost like scratches
on
the surface.
Exactly.
That wouldn't happen with metal.
Right.
Got it.
And with metal, you might have more mold lines. Same thing with resin still. By the way, I want to show you how I got paint on his arm here and how it's pretty simple to fix because this is a lighter color especially. Just to go back in here. And I can see some of the green through it still, so I'm going to wait for that to dry and then do it again. But that's how simple it is to fix things as you go, especially if you're layering like this.
Right.
So
yeah, and yeah, I mean, any other tips on if you mess up?
Just remember, let it dry. Like if you mess up with a lot of paint, go ahead and try to wipe it off. If you mess up with just a little bit of paint, you can wait for it to dry and then paint over it.
Right, because these acrylics, like you said a second ago, are opaque, so you really can literally just paint over any mistake.
Now, like, so for instance, like I really like, let's say I've painted his face already and I've got it just how I want it. I don't want it to mess up. I don't want to get anything on it. I could spray it with my spray varnish, let that dry, and then that's kind of like a setting point for it. So that way, if I do get paint on his face or something later, I can wipe that off really easy because there's that, it's at a set point.
Got it. Okay. So the corollary then would be true. Don't put that varnish on if you still have work to do.
Or put it on in between steps that you get it to where you like it in a certain stage. All right, I'm trying to figure out what color is this. That's sort of a lighter light green or darker light green. So I'm going to mix my light green with my dark green here.
Clarence also has an excellent selection or suggestion and says, everyone viewing, please give a like. That would be fantastic if you gave
that'd be
Shoshie
great.
a like on this live stream. That will help with the algorithms and help more people not only see her content, but of course see ElfQuest. And so on that note too, don't click away, but there is an official ElfQuest YouTube channel, and there's some really amazing content up there, and we will actually feature this video in a playlist over there. So open up another browser tab or head to the ElfQuest, just search on it, you'll find it. It's ElfQuest by Wendy and Richard Paynes is the official ElfQuest. That would be really, really awesome if everybody did that.
So I just want to see who in the chat can already know without looking what color his pants are. I'm just curious because I know that there's somebody. There's got to be. Meanwhile,
sure, there's yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm going to find myself a reference just to make sure.
Well, Shoshie, I am making the offer right now. If you are ever painting any of these and you are in a pinch and don't have a book handy, you can always text me.
Oh, good.
I will have the answer for you, and if I don't know it, I know exactly where to look to get it. So
that's awesome. All right, Redlance ElfQuest. Here we go. Looks like they are a brown, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
For this particular outfit, they are kind of like a medium dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
But in other outfits he has, sometimes they're green, sometimes they're more of like a rust
Yeah.
color. So
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I wanted to see. Okay, so I actually have a brand new paint that is the perfect brown. It's called Warm Brown. This comes from their new signature series. They worked with a bunch of other artists and they came up with some new colors. And I was just thinking when oof, that paint blob just missed my mini. It went down in my palette. Thank goodness. Woo. All right. Hey, Ro, how are you? Ro is one of my Patreon followers. I do have a Patreon because I'm making my own miniatures. Oh, yeah, that's the perfect brown.
I want to hear all about this.
Okay. So, the miniature world is really not any different than the comic world. It's very male-dominated, and the miniatures are, in general, made for men. And so you can imagine we get the same kind of minis over and over again that appeal to that kind of enthusiast.
Sure. Yep.
So,
I can imagine.
As a woman and somebody who loves ElfQuest and fantasy and, you know, maybe things with a more female gaze, I decided I wanted to make my own line of minis to appeal to people who are either women or LGBTQIA or, you know, of color, Black and Indigenous and people of color, because we don't see a lot of, you know, those kinds of, we see those models, but we don't ever see them marketed to those people.
Right.
Echo, hello.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that I never thought of until I saw you addressing it, and so I think that's so cool and so important, and it just makes me love your work even more, quite frankly, because it's. I mean, this is we need to be thinking about that and making it happen because. You know, the world is a diverse place.
Well,
right?
just like with comics, you know, there's as many people who might enjoy comics as there are people, but they're not being marketed to, right? The things are generally when there's a fandom, they stick to the same thing they've always done.
Right. Yeah, not being marketed to, and people, you know, not seeing themselves reflected back in the product, and you know, and that's just like it's a lot of different words, some of which I can't say, I won't say here, but
I'm gonna add just a tiny bit of red to this brown that I've been using because I believe his boots are a little bit more reddish. Does that sound right?
Yep, I would call them kind of like a dark rust.
Yeah.
So where can people go, Shoshie, to see the minis that you're producing?
They can go to shoshiesminis.com. Now, so the way I've been working, because it's such a saturated male audience, I'm building a brand new market, right? So I had to do something that was low risk for myself as a business. So I only do pre-order. So that means if you are on my newsletter email list or you are on my social media, you'll know when I'm releasing a model, and the people who sign up and order, basically pre-order a model, those are the ones who get them, and they're not, I might have like some available later on for sale, but generally what I make is what gets sent out.
So in marketing terms, we call that exclusive.
Yes. Limited edition.
And so are you, how, when you say you're creating them, are you doing is it a 3D design that you're creating, that you're printing, or how does that work?
So I hired a concept artist and they kind of help me flesh out the concept. And then I have some sculptors and they do oh, yay. Somebody's like, they love your designs. I have a concept artist, I have sculptors who then take the concept and put it into a 3D STL file. And then the STL file gets sent to my caster who will, actually before that, I have a friend who does test 3D printing. So I'm going to just show you. Is that all right? Because that makes... Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to show you a couple of the stuff that I've already had made. Okay, so here we go. This was my first model. It's called Wishing for a Soul.
Wow.
And we don't ever get to really see beautiful, emotional men in miniatures, right? We've seen them all over ElfQuest.
Yes, it is. ElfQuest kind of specializes in them. I mean, that's Redlance's whole jam, right?
Right. And
it's a sensitive plant grower, but yeah, no, I can completely understand what you mean. You know, and again, it's not something I ever thought about, but seeing that figure compared to like, you know, the death dealers and you know, the swords and the bloods and the like uber sort of aggressive masculinity, this is not that, and that's kind of
exactly
incredible.
This is like with a female gaze in mind, and of course those people who like men.
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking the same thing. It's like
Exactly. Now this one is my Filipino merman. We don't get to, I mean, have you ever seen a Filipino merman, much less well, you've probably seen mermen because they're in the internet and stuff, but I don't know if I've ever seen Filipino mermen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, they're always sort of white-based.
yes.
And it's just so ridiculous. When
And it
you
made
sort of
sense to
think about
me
it.
for this merman to like live near an archipelago, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then here's the test print. So you can see the test print is a different resin. And then I'll show you, I've been working on painting my merman. I'm not done with him. But here's how he's looking, getting painted.
Well, Bratling says that merman is lit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, he's in the process. I still have a lot of work to do on the base. And then I have, this is kind of a sneak peek of the next model that's coming out. I'll show him to you guys. You guys are going to freak out. He's a demon librarian.
Oh my god, I love it.
Yes. All right, first of all, he has this awesome Chesterfield chair, which is a whole character in itself.
Uh-huh.
He also has this little bookcase that is going to be an add-on, so you don't have to get it if you don't want to make a diorama. And then here, I'm going to put him on his chair. Oh, I forgot his arm. Hold on, let me go grab his arm. There it is. He's kind of in pieces still because I'm in the process of getting him ready for photographing and stuff. Hold on. Here we go. All right, you're gonna love this. So the idea behind him is that we don't get to see attractive men shown as intellectual in fantasy very much.
Right.
And look at these hoof boots. He's a demon. He's also could be
My
a
heart
tiefling.
is a flutter.
He could be a tiefling too. Yeah.
Sure.
So the idea was, you know, like intelligence is incredibly sexy, and I wanted to show that in, you know, the male form. Yeah, Ro is looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm here for it. So Jason just made a comment that I think is great, and for folks that maybe weren't not here earlier, Jason Weeb is, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
Weeby, I believe.
Weeby
Yeah.
is the sculptor for the ElfQuest miniatures
Yes.
that Shoshie is painting. And Jason says what it takes is to tilt the system a bit and make conscious choices on your commission pieces. One would hope Shoshie's efforts will lead to greater demand and prompt more miniature
That
makers.
is my hope. And then sculptors will be asked to do this more. Now, I have to say, I'm going to put this on my face real quick. Hang on one second, because I have to say this. Every stage, except for the casting, is all done by women. We have a woman concept artist, women sculptors. You know, I'm a woman, and I'm doing the basically the ideation of everything. And the casters, they have some women working for them. But that's one of the other things. This is a woman-owned company that is making minis for women and people who like men. You know.
Love it.
Yes.
It's so impressive, and I couldn't think of, you know, anything more in line with the sort of the vibe of ElfQuest.
Yes.
Yeah, which is all about kind of just sort of breaking all those gender stereotypes and presenting a diversity of women characters in, you know, every way that you can be a woman, right? And so and just you know, all of that stuff, breaking away from that rigidity that's so stifling and celebrating the incredible diversity in every way, shape, and form.
All of my box artists are also women, and so that way I'm able to elevate the women who are already professional painters in this hobby that don't often get chosen to do box art, you know, for different reasons, right? Because it's just how things are in the art world.
Yeah, no, I just couldn't be more impressed with this work, Shoshie. It's the kind of thing that just warms your heart, quite frankly, to know that folks like yourself are out there, like, really making a difference. It's brilliant.
I have one more to show you guys. This is another test print. This is another sneak peek that this is the first time anybody's seen him that isn't on my Patreon. Hold on one second. So this is my orc with dad bod, and he's a cat dad. And he's got a little butt dimples.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And I just love him. And the reason why I made him was because so many women and people asked me for this. They said, this is the body type that I'm attracted to, and I want to see this. And
I love that. You know,
who
speaking
doesn't
as
love a
someone-
cuddly guy with animals?
Speaking as, you know, a middle-aged guy with a little bit of a dad bod, you know, we could be sexy too, right?
100%. 100%. He's going to be pretty popular too. And
Incredible.
we have a model in the future for the skinny boys too. We have
Love it.
an emo harpy.
Oh, that's kind of fitting, I think.
Yes. All right. So I need some help with this tree trunk. I don't want to make it the same color brown as Redlance. What
So
color was it in the comic?
Yeah, so I'm so glad this is coming up because I love that the mini is featuring this particular plant because I think what it's supposed to be based on is these weird desert cloud trees that have this sort of like almost like a yellowish tan bark and like pink little poofs on them. They look very Dr. Seussian. And so if you are, you know, if you wanted the contrast with the brown pants, you know, you could go that route and kind of paint it comic accurate. Or, you know, if that's not what you're into, you could totally paint this like a more traditional brown, gray tree bark and green leaves. So I think it's your creator's choice.
I think I'm gonna mix a little bit of pink with my brown. I want to see what happens so that it's at least a different shade. Let's see. So I have this dark umber. Let me put this on the palette. Oh, I'm almost out of this color. There we go. And I have this is called Burgundy. And I'm just going to mix a little bit of that. And then I can also make this the beginning of the base coat for the cloud as well.
Okay.
All right.
There's a bunch of interesting comments and questions. So Clarence Oddbody says, how much more expensive are sturdier resins for 3D printing, or it is a trade of smaller, faster versus larger, slower?
Oh, that's a good point.
And yeah, I don't know if you want to address that.
I don't know that much about 3D printing myself, although I just know from a painter's perspective, right? Like if I were to be able to give advice to people producing 3D printed minis, I would pick the sturdier.
Okay.
Over whatever price, whatever they're trying to save money on.
So, yeah,
because I'll pay a little more if it's gonna last a little longer.
Right, and Jason actually says it depends on the printer as well. There are some commercial production printers that can rival resin or Ciocast, if I'm saying that properly. Ciocast. I don't know what that is.
Ciocast is pretty new. Yeah.
What is that? Just another kind of like
So
a resin, or
maybe Jason can say what Ciocast is. I kind of have an idea of what it is, but I can't articulate it.
Okay, and that's fine. I don't want to distract you too much from the painting. I feel like I've been distracting you with so many questions, but
there we go. All right, so I've kind of got a pinkish color to this bark. It's still reading as brown, but it's going to look even better once I get the cloud part done.
Skyfire just posted, I thought it was strangleweed. You know what? If you want it to be strangleweed,
yeah, it could
then
be.
It could be strangleweed, right?
Be some dangerous plants to learn to shape. I was
Laura Lee Wilson. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Laura Lee says, for the Grayman figure, do you suggest affixing him to his throne after painting is done?
That's a good question.
Because he's in 3 pieces.
What I would do is paint the throne first, then put him in. He's in 3 pieces?
Yeah, it's the throne, it's the base that the throne sits on,
yeah,
and then the actual Greymung figure sits on the throne.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I was going to just paint each one separately and then kind of put them together.
Yeah.
Personally.
That's what I did, but
okay.
I think no matter what, you want to paint the throne first, because if you... I mean, you could paint them all together as one piece, but like it's going to be hard to reach back in the behind him.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah, and yeah, and
So-
then the backside of Greymung would not be painted.
Yeah, and there really isn't a wrong way to do it. I mean, it's going to be whatever it's going to get the results for you best is going to work the best.
Yeah. Jason said COCAS is an injection system using a thermoplastic material, more plastic than resin, and that it's a good material. So thanks, Jason, for adding clarity there.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, that's the COCAS is it's also nice because if you're a company that is you wouldn't have to have it cast overseas, because you can just have COCAS machines. You can have them in the United States really easily.
Got it.
More companies are moving to that.
I have to admit to being completely ignorant to how 3D printing actually works. It seems like magic to me.
Yeah.
Adalure has added some more info about the COCast.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Rowena, for answering Bradley's question about how long it will take to paint one mini. It depends, 30 minutes to 100 plus hours.
Right. Yeah, you can spend a long time picking at it. I am an impatient person, so I don't usually tend to spend days and days on minis.
Well, watching you do Redlance here, it is actually like moving right along. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was going to take, like 10 hours to do, one mini and do it justice. But with the tips and tricks, especially like things like doing like those washes that kind of fill in and create the kind of the shadows,
Yes.
and doing the dark colors first and then the lighter colors on top to create those highlights, like it's looking pretty tight. And I'm sure you're going way slower because we're chatting than you would if you were just doing this on your own.
And I'd probably be having way more detail too, because I can hold it closer to my face.
Right.
I actually like this pink color. It turned out pretty cool. All right, so hold on, let me get in. This is going to be the trickiest part, getting in between. It's one thing that I like about, minis that are not 3D printed. See, I got some pink on his foot. One thing I like about minis that are not 3D printed is they usually come in pieces that make it a whole lot easier to assemble, sub-assemble.
So pieces in the way that the Greymung came in pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can paint the pieces separately and then kind of put them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that makes it easier to paint in the long run.
Right. Well, between this tutorial and the fact that I have all of these ElfQuest minis sitting around, I also have the old ones from the 80s, which I might even take a stab at. But also seeing your amazing minis, I think I might need to take up mini painting as a hobby.
Yay! Yeah, and it's so relaxing. I will just say this. I know a lot of people who maybe are veterans, and they use this hobby as a way to decompress, and it's really good for people with PTSD or anxiety. It really kind of helps you really chill, because you're really in the moment.
It's so funny because, I'm a Virgo. I can be a little bit type A. And I was actually, like, my reaction is the opposite, because I'm so, like, detail oriented that it stresses me out a little bit. But I'm sure once I start doing it, I will calm down.
All right, so I'm letting that dry, because the next stage I'm going to take the dry brush and just very lightly dry brush the tops of those trees. And I don't know if you guys caught while we were talking, I took this brighter green and I did a highlight on his vest. I'm doing it again. So we've got some variation here. There we go. And let me look at this card. He's got a lighter half circle there. Let's see if I can replicate that with my bright green.
That's like a patch.
Yeah, this is, and it's already on the model, so it's actually pretty easy to paint. The edges of his clothing here.
Jason, if you're still with us and you are willing, I'd love to hear from you. How familiar you were with the ElfQuest characters before you, got the gig to do these sculpts. Because you did an incredible job, and the detail and that that Shoshie was just mentioning is really spectacular. Especially as I'm seeing them get painted, it's really, the detail is really popping. So I'm just curious again, if you're here and feel like sharing that would be wonderful to hear. In the chat, of course.
I'm going to do a technique here in a second on his headband and his armband. I'm starting out with this yellow ochre color. And I'm going to let that dry. And then I'm going to have some of my ivory. Actually, I need a yellow first. Because we're painting a non-metallic metal is what it's called.
Okay.
It's actually a technique to make, it's like it's a two-dimensional art technique. Like when you look at the Renaissance paintings, those paintings were all done with paint, right? But they look like they're made with pearls and metal, right? But they didn't use anything special. There's no metallic paint involved. All right, so now I'm going to do just a little bit of a line here with that white. This is the highlight for the gold. Let that dry completely and then come back over it with this yellow, because yellow's transparent. And that white will kind of shine through it. There we go.
Yeah, that's something too that I didn't really think about is, different materials in real life have different light reflectivity. So, some things like metals are shinier, and some things like fabrics might be a little bit more matte. And so getting those tips on how to kind of recreate those different, that aspect of these things is also super, super helpful.
Let me see if I can sharpen my focus here a little bit, and I'm going to also brighten my contrast just a smidge. There we go, and then the contrast. Maybe not contrast, maybe the exposure. Nope. Brightness. There we go. And you can kind of see how it looks like his headband is shining. Just with that little bit of light that I've used. What would I use for the blues and new moon? That's a really good question. So, what I would do is I would get one of Wendy's pictures of new moon and look and see what colors that she has. That's my first step. And in fact, let me look and see. I'm pretty good about picking out colors from images from references and being able to transfer. Let me look up new moon and tell you what we can do. We can just look at it on my phone here. 1 second.
Again, the internet on our mobile devices is a great tool. You can just do a search really on anything ElfQuest related, and you should be able to find it pretty quickly because there's just tons of ElfQuest art that's online.
Exactly. And a whole bunch of images of people's paper mache new moons have come up. It's really cool. All right.
Oh, yeah.
That's neat. All right, let's see. So here's a picture of New Moon, and it looks like if we dissect what Wendy's done here, we've got white, we've got gray kind of fuzzed out, so you would blend that really nice into the white. There is some blue, but it's very light blue. And then there's more like a solid blue right here. There's gray here. I would say, like, just look at her. She's making non-metallic metal right here. She's taking color and line art and making it look metallic. And that's all I'm doing on the mini too. Yeah, so you can basically,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, a little sort of the way that I think of New Moon, in ElfQuest, there is this type of metal called bright metal. That the name says it all, right? It's like, it's not just sort of your kind of dull gray kind of like iron or even steel, which is a little bit shinier, or maybe it's supposed to be kind of like the ElfQuest version of steel. But I think of bright metal again as very, very shiny and reflective, and you could see that in the way that Wendy renders it, you know, even in black and white, but particularly in color. You know, it's much more of like the silver and the blue and the white coloring versus kind of like the more sort of matte gray coloring that you might see in other types of metal. So that's awesome. Oh, and look who is in the chat.
Who's that?
ElfQuest by Wendy and Richard Paynes are here lurking, loving all the neat info and comments. So so amazing that you guys are here, Wendy and Richard.
Hello.
I hope you're you know, just soaking in all the love that is coming through both the chat and the conversation, because we love you guys.
So okay, for the cloud tree, I'm going to take a little of this pink. This is just pink, and I'm going to put it on my, this is, you could use like a makeup brush, or even just a regular brush where you cut the top off of it, and I'm wiping off most of the paint, and then you come back in here and you can dry brush for the highlights. Got to be careful because you don't want to get any on his boots here.
Jason, thank you for answering the question about how you kind of came to ElfQuest. It's a cool backstory. And it just also goes to show you that, you know, ElfQuest is celebrating its 45th year this year. And there are so many people out there in the world that have been, you know, touched by it, you know, either by reading it or having a family member introduce them to it when they were younger, even if they, you know, haven't kept up, which I, you know, highly recommend you do. You know, check out all the collections that I was mentioning earlier. But yeah, ElfQuest is everywhere and has had such an influence, I think, on a lot of people in comics and beyond.
Definitely.
I mean, yourself included, Shoshie.
Yes, right? Yes. Even my watercolors were influenced by Wendy's color.
Love it.
Okay, so I did some light dry brushing on the trunk of the tree, and I like how that looks. Now I'm going to do probably one of the hardest parts of the mini, which is the eyes. This is going to be something I might not be able to do on camera, but I will try.
Okay.
So
we have faith.
Yes. There we go. All right, now, so let me take that off. I'm going to put just a smidge of black on my palette. This is coal black. And I need a very sharp brush. Let me see if I've got a small brush. This is a smaller detail brush. The downside of these smaller brushes, you don't want to paint the whole model with this because your paint is going to dry out on the tip pretty quickly. There's nothing to hold the water. But for some details like this, you'll want to do it. So I'm going to turn him upside down first of all to paint the, is that his right eye? That's his right eye. His right eye. Oh, you can see, look at my brush is all fuzzed out. So I need to see if I can find a sharper brush.
Now, is that just from, because it's an older brush, or is it the bristles maybe are a different type than one that might have a tighter point, or
it's probably because I am rough on my brushes. And I mean, there's different tricks you can do to keep your brushes pointed, but I don't always do that. All right, so I painted the whole eyeball is getting painted black.
Okay, so that is a shock.
This is going to end up being the eyeliner around the eyes, right?
Got it.
Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I got kind of a blob on his cheek, so I still need to wait for that to dry, and then I can go and clean that up with my Flesh color. And I'm going to wait for that to dry some more. While I do that, I'm going to give him some burgundy in his mouth. Okay, so now it's dry. I can go back in with my peach color for his that I had on his skin. And let's see, I'm not on camera. I want you to be able to see this. Oop. Okay. And I can just come up under it and shape it. Now, I'm going to take an ivory. Not white. Do not use white, because white will be like, he'll look like he has like Google eyes. It'll look way too bright. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a little oval on top of this black oval, but make it smaller. So that way you can see his eyeliner, right?
Right.
This is the hardest part on this, to do this on camera. It's not as hard to do off camera.
Well, again, we will be cognizant of that in our judgment.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, ElfQuest eyes are like a total thing, right? And I think it's one of the things that's so distinct about the character designs, and you know, the way that Wendy has you know, designed these characters with these sort of, you know, big luminous, very sort of anime manga influenced eyes is just like a signature of what ElfQuest is all about. So I love the fact that you're referring to them as having eyeliner, because they all have these beautiful eyes.
Yeah, but this is how I paint even non-elf characters, and I'll just make the eyeliner a little bit more pronounced on the elves.
Right.
So I adjusted the focus on my camera a little bit, so hopefully it's a little bit more crisp.
Lisa Lannon says, these tips, black first to be eyeliner and ivory, I never would have guessed. And again, this is why we're here and why we're so thrilled to be working with you, Shoshie, because you're just a wealth of knowledge on everything to do with mini painting. And I know a lot of folks in the ElfQuest community, myself included, were quite frankly a little intimidated to even think about painting our ElfQuest minis. And now I'm feeling much more confident about it. So
yeah,
I want to just thank you for that.
Okay, so now I'm just trying to make that eyeliner as thin as possible by making the white as big as possible without going over into the skin. I don't want to erase the eyeliner part. All right, so I feel like I want to touch up his liner down here real quick. There we go. Just to make him look a little bit more elfy, I'm going to stretch it out a little bit on the edges. Yeah, I don't like it. Can fix it. Remember, if you don't like something, you can just let it dry, paint back over it.
Right.
All right, so I will tell you, I'm going to make a sketch so you can see this. The easiest way to paint eyes, if you've never done it before, is to make them look like they're looking off to the side, not straight on. So many people,
Okay.
I see here, I'm going to show you. So many people will draw eyes and they'll have this like dot like this.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it makes total sense that that it will look less alive and less realistic if it's like this dead-on stare.
Yeah. If you want to put it in the middle, you need to make it a semicircle and have the eyelid coming down over the top. Now these minis are too small to do this with, but this is kind of how I do my eyes with bigger models. I'll do the white, I'll do my black eyeliner, and then I'll do my white oval in the middle, and then I'll do another circle here for the iris, and sometimes a pupil, sometimes not, and then a tiny little white ding for the highlight. And I got all of this from ElfQuest Eyes, right?
Oh,
That's where I learned this. And then also, if you're going to make eyes for the very first time and you're not confident, make them, again, don't make them full circles. It's like a semicircle, and make them look off to the side. It will not only look better, but it will be easier for you.
Yeah, and I think it probably would not be a bad idea to just draw some eyes. And
I practice on paper. Practice making them on paper.
Totally, yeah. Like open up an issue of ElfQuest and just look at one of these beautiful eyes that Wendy has drawn, and you'll see all the different pieces. The eyes need to have a lid, and then there's the iris and the pupil, and then a reflection. And again, the minis are so tiny, you might not be able to get into that level of detail, but knowing what those pieces are and the shapes, just based on the drawing and doing that with your hand, I think will really help inform you when you're pulling the paints out to paint the minis.
All right, so I think, so when I do my iris, I'm going to use black. Now, normally Redlance has green eyes, but these minis are so tiny. You have to think about this. Could you see Redlance's eyes across a football field? Because this is the scale we're talking about. And so, all right, I'm going to try to make these eyes over here, looking at the tree a little bit.
There's some more good comments here. So Bratling says that their spouse comments, also a dead-on centered iris pupil, makes it look like the character wants to attack you. And
right.
For sure. Like that dead-on stare can actually be a sign of aggression. And Lisa asks a question. She had to jump out before, so she missed when we talked about this. She asked the question about using magnification that you're holding this under, and have you ever used Optivisor with a light that you wear on your head?
I have, but it doesn't really work for me too well. It's because I have just so much. I'm so nearsighted. Optivisors kind of get in my way, and so I have such magnifying natural eyeballs that it's just easier for me to just take my glasses off.
Right.
I like how ElfQuest says, it looks like Loki got to Redlance with the Infinity Scepter. Yes.
I saw that too. So Lisa, to answer that question, Shoshie is not using any magnification, which blew my mind. When I do this, I might want to get something like that, because I've had to get a new, stronger prescription for my glasses twice in the last 3 years. So I might need a little bit of extra help.
All right, I painted his lip, but now I'm going back over it with a highlight of the base tone, so that way it doesn't look too pink. All right, what's left? I want to highlight his pants just a smidge. I'm going to take a little bit of orange and mix it with that pants color so we get a highlight. And again, I'm going over all of the volumes carefully. I feel like his the tree needs some shading. I'm going to use this purple, this is red. I want a purple wash for the tree to see what happens. It'll make some nice deep purple. Yeah, that's what I want to give me some contrast. It has that fantasy feel too.
Yeah.
Now, normally, if I had the bigger model, I would do the little dots in his eyes. But again, he's so tiny that I'm not going to do that. I have this color. Where is it? It's a new color. It's like a Paynes gray. It reads as black. I don't like to use a lot of black because that's not it. Because it can be read so flat. If I can find it, here it is. Here we go. It's so dark it will just look like black, but it's not, and it will not flatten things out. And then now, so I'm going to go through with this Paynes gray and just, it's called dark lining. And if you do this really thick, it will look really cartoony. But if you do it thin enough, it will look just like these. So if you look at all of the ElfQuest work, whenever there is something over something, like a vest over a, you know, somebody's skin, there's a drop shadow that is darker. It's like a heavier line, and that's what we're doing. We're creating that heavier line to mimic that drop shadow.
Right. So, there's a little bit of a delay in what I am watching for everybody, in case, you know, any of my comments have seemed weird based on what you're seeing, because what I'm seeing is a few seconds behind, and so like you were just drawing the eyes, and I hadn't seen that you did that, and so I was talking about it. So, but I'm getting to my video has caught up to the spot where, you know, you just kind of put the shading and everything in Redlance's eyes. And holy freaking cow. I mean, there he is. That is Redlance. He's like alive. I am blown away. And so for everybody watching this live, you had that reaction like 30 seconds ago, but it's just catching up. So I just had to say that. Holy cow.
I need to go back and look at what people said. Yes. All right, so let's see. Yeah, he's really coming along. I'm going to just take a tiny bit of this ivory and mix it with my base shadow so I can have a little bit of a highlight on some parts, like on the tips of his ears. Just on the tip of his chin. Fingertips. The trouble with this tiny brush is that everything dries on it so fast.
And again, you don't want to be dipping your brushes in water or anything, right?
I have been, but I keep a little blob of water on my palette.
Okay. So you want to keep it moist, but maybe not like sopping wet?
Right. Exactly. Okay, so now in the places where I've gotten that highlight, I can go back with my base and just knock it down just a smidge. Oh, that's really bright. Oh, I don't want that bright. I know why. Because it had that Reikland Fleshshade over the top of it. This will kill it. There we go. Let that dry. All right. Now I'm going to take my brush here. I like to paint the base black. It really makes a difference when you paint the base. And I like to leave that for later because it really helps kind of pop out the mini, and it shows you where you might need more contrast sometimes.
Right. Yep. I was wondering about that.
And I always paint, always paint the base because it's like the frame of your mini. And even if you don't do anything else to it, just paint it black. it finishes it. Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. So there's lots of chatting happening in asking questions about the tree,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about this at the very beginning. And when I looked at it, I see sort of those pink cloud trees, and that's the treatment that you've gone with.
Mm-hmm.
Others had said they thought maybe it was strangleweed or dreamberry bushes.
Yeah.
And so I think all of those. I mean, it's really whatever you want. But Amanda did ask Jason, can you speak to what part of the comic you modeled the sculpt of the tree from? We're all
That's a good
just
idea.
guessing,
Yeah.
AOL. And so, yeah, I mean, Jason, again, if you're still with us and have an answer to that, or even if you don't, let us know.
Mm-hmm. There we go. Well, I would say he's pretty much done. I would probably go and pick at him a little bit off camera so I could see him better. But this is
Sure.
this is where I would finish him on the stream.
Right.
Let's just show him off a little bit. There we go.
I was gonna say we're at about 2 hours in, and I don't know how long you typically go, Shoshie. I'm here as long as you are. So
Yeah, 2 hours is what I normally do. But I am willing to paint Savah.
Okay.
If you want to do that. Let's see what the chat wants to do. You guys want me to keep going? Some of you showed up late, so maybe you want me to go a little longer. I have the stamina, so it's okay.
Yeah, if you want Shoshie to continue with the second figure, which is Savah, let us know in the chat. You know what my vote is.
Here you go. Oh, I see a little spot on his boot that needs fixed.
Kaya Root says, amazing, he is alive.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Let me show off.
Rena says, keep going. Skyfire says, up to you.
There's our little tree stump next to him. You can see the difference. I've had more time and I was able to really take a lot more care with tree stump because, I painted him off camera. Here's the back of his little hatchet. And then here's Nightfall.
So Jason just replied to the question about the tree, and I
Oh,
love
yeah.
the answer. He says, honestly, it looked like a characteristic ElfQuest tree. I had a reference sketch, and I tried to combine what I remembered as ElfQuesty evocative vegetation. And you nailed it. You totally nailed it. I mean, again, for
Definitely.
me, I instantly saw it. It read to me as those kind of pinkish, almost Dr. Seuss-like Sun Village trees, which are just like 100% ElfQuesty. So
There he is.
very cool.
There we go. And you're going to get a little delay, but I got him in my hand. Moonshade, you're right. Sorry, I said the wrong name. Moonshade.
Yeah. In my experience, Moonshade and Nightfall are the two that people get the names, like, even if they are diehard ElfQuest fans, our brains sometimes fizzle a little bit and we say the wrong thing. Those are the two that get confused most often, I think.
They're literally the two most opposite women too, like in personality.
That's true too. Yeah. I see Nightshade a lot. You take Nightfall and Moonshade and you mash them together. So, but yeah, pretty much everybody is hoping that you will continue on.
Sure, definitely. I'm showing off Mad Coil now because Amber wanted to see Mad Coil again. I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. He's really fun.
Jason just added a great comment that this is one of the first times that he had a tree as a central character in a mini. And Wendy and Richard said that would be the case. Yes, I mean, well, it's ElfQuest, the Wolf Riders. They love their trees. Redlance, the plant shaper. It's really the perfect design, and that's one of the reasons why I voted for this one. Not only because Redlance is my personal favorite character, but I just thought the design on this was just so cool. A lot of the other ones don't have that extra thing in them the way that this one does. So
this was the special trick on the Mad Coil. This is a nail art color shifting powder, and it's a pigment that you can get. I just got it off Amazon, but it's for nail art. And I want to show you. So if you take some like glass varnish specifically was what I think I can use. Let me see if I have some. This is medium. I can probably use medium. So this is some, just any kind of gloss varnish or medium, and you mix that. Here, I'm going to show you with the powder. Here's the medium right here. You can see this little clear bubble. And I want to, just going to dip that in there. And look at that. See how it turns into a paint. And that's what I used. So yeah.
Super neat. So would you put the varnish over that too, so
Yes.
that it wouldn't? Okay.
Now with the matte varnish, it will kill that metallic look because it'll mattify it. But what you can do is just kind of do a little dry brush with the pigment. I think I just kind of put it over there with my finger on top, and you know, it's not as permanent as the others, but it's still pretty good. All right, there's Redlance. Let me get Savah.
Awesome. Well, bravo on Redlance. Just mind is blown. I said it already.
All right, I need a good reference for her. Let me see if I have her card handy. These cards are really great references for painting your models, especially the face.
Yeah, those character cards were another reward in the ElfQuest audio movie crowdfunding campaign. And I will mention again, in case anybody joined that was not here at the beginning, these minis were rewards in this the crowdfunding campaign that we did back in 2021 to get the ElfQuest audio movie, which is an audio dramatization of the first 5 issues of the ElfQuest comic. That are available now as a free 10-part podcast series, available pretty much on all podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and a bunch of others. And it's pretty phenomenal. It's as mind-blowing as your paint job, I think, Shoshie, on the minis. And so the rewards for the last couple of months have been shipping out to all the backers, and that's what really prompted this, because you know, I was familiar with Shoshie and her work, and she really helped us promote the crowdfunding campaign back in 2021 on her social media.
Yeah.
And so we kind of connected and said, hey, wouldn't it be great to show all of the ElfQuest fans out there, you know, the backers who have these, and even just the fandom in general, how to go about painting these minis. And Shoshie was game for it, and here we are.
Yes. So there's some questions in the chat. Let me check here. It looks like, so yes, these are acrylic-based paints. Yeah, you can glue them to cardboard. I have double-sided foam tape is what I have mine on. And you don't need to use a hobby holder. You can use a medicine bottle or a cork, or somebody said that they used the old wooden spools for thread. Let's see.
Yeah,
and
that was neat.
Probably can't do 2 separate streams. This is probably going to be it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint Savah.
Well,
today.
And Clarence, this if you can't stay right now to watch live, the video will be up. So once Shoshie ends this, it'll be live on her YouTube channel, and we're going to share it on all of the ElfQuest social medias, and we'll add it to a playlist on the ElfQuest YouTube. So you can always come back and watch the recording and get all the magnificent tips from Shoshie.
So looking at her card, she's got a very golden brown skin tone. It's actually, if you look at her crown, there's that same gold color in her crown. I can pick out my gold color. I'm actually going to paint her hat in a metallic metal, so you'll get a chance to see how that looks and how it's very similar to the non-metallic metal, but it'll look more, because her crown is very golden. All right.
Well, I love that we're gonna get to see kind of both techniques, you know, non-metallic painting and then using actual metallic paints.
They call it true metallic metal in the business. Now I'm starting with this golden, but remember we're gonna do that wash again. That's going to darken everything up in the crevices.
Right.
She doesn't have as much skin showing as Redlance did, so it should be pretty quick.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I'm excited about with Savah is, you know, her flowing gown.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you have any, again, like tips or tricks for giving the impression of like gauzy, flowy, ethereal kind of material.
I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to decide how I want it to look. Because there's so many ways you can go with that.
Right.
I need to look at the references from Wendy's art as well, because that will actually, for me, that's more important, that it looks like it's true to ElfQuest, you know, like the colors.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think most ElfQuest fans, you know, if they're going to paint these, are going to try to stick to colors that, that they, you know, as these characters are portrayed in the comics and in Wendy's art.
I'm going to search up a reference real quick and see what I can find. There we go. All right, so this is probably one of my favorite pieces of art regarding Savah. And it's this, let me get my ring light out of the way here. It's this beautiful, from the portfolio. And there's purples and whites. So it's all pastels though. So, which is tricky because pastels can get really chalky with minis. Yeah. Let me think how I want to do this. All right, I'm just going to jump in it.
Again, I love that this is like, you know, we're getting the real deal. This is you looking at this and making decisions right as we're listening and watching.
This is the process. This is
well, it also is a good lesson for the rest of us. I mean, yes, you have deep experience, but you know, we don't necessarily have to overthink it. And that's my problem. Like I would be sitting here for like, you know, a month being like, what, maybe I should use this thing and what product. And I think what I'm going to do, the lesson that I'm taking is like, just go out and try it, buy some stuff.
Yeah.
Give it a go. And like you keep saying, if I do something that I don't like, I can always paint over it.
So I've got this kind of a mint green, and I've got this, it's called warm flesh, and I'm mixing it together to kind of get this even more desaturated pastel green. And I think this is the right color. Okay, yeah. I'm just going to go with this, and then we'll use another green to go into the recesses. We're just going to see how chalky it can be, but we're going to go with it. I'll show you what's going to happen. Let's be a little closer to the camera too. That is the right color though, and we can add more green tones to it as well. Because she's got pretty much so much of all of one color as her outfit, it's gonna paint up a lot faster than Redlance actually.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. And that's actually something to think about for those of you who are going to be painting your first mini. Is think about the you know, the figure itself and the details, because you know, Savah to me actually seemed kind of intimidating because of the flow of the gown, but as Shoshie just pointed out, there's a lot less
less thinking about it once you
a lot of the a lot of the sculpt itself is actually going to do a lot of the work, I think, on
100%. Yes. Just getting a smooth base coat is my first goal, which means painting pretty quickly so that I don't get lots of little streakies and different, you know, layers of paint in there. Yes, her crown is going to be, I'm going to paint that with a non-metallic metal. And you're going to see it's going to look really cool. Or sorry, no, I lied. I'm going to paint it with a true metallic metal so it'll look really metallic.
That's what I thought.
Yes. Sometimes when I'm painting, my brain goes into right brain mode, and right brain mode is not in charge of language. In fact, streaming and painting and talking is actually something I think a lot of people find really difficult.
Yeah, it definitely is. Speaking for myself, I have to do a lot of live streaming myself, both for ElfQuest and for my other work, and be speaking but having 5 other things happening that people can't see off camera happening, and you have to stay on top of it all, and it's definitely not easy.
All right, I'm painting over her belt for now on parts of it because I'm going to go back over that later. It's also one of the top layers. So anything in higher layers gets painted later anyway, so it's going to be okay. If I get paint on it.
Great comment in here. Savah was a challenging sculpt in this set. Not at all in a bad way. It was just trying to capture her personality from 2D to 3D.
Yeah. She's less dynamic too, so she's so, chill.
Yeah, like regal. She always has these sort of regal poses that I never even thought about this, but you're right. It's sort of the opposite of like Wolf Rider poses in their physicality. Like Savah is like, she's statuesque, know, and she's usually seen either, seated in a throne or kind of, for the most part, kind of standing in this regal, kind of posture. And Jason, you nailed it in the sculpt, just so you know.
And I'm glad that you didn't go with a sitting pose too, because while yes, there are pictures of her sitting, it works better as a 3D figure to be standing. She wouldn't have that majesticness.
The Gray Mung is pretty rad.
Yeah, well,
and he's sitting.
I couldn't imagine him standing, right? It's the opposite.
Well, that's true. Yeah, because he's so squat.
The one mini that I am a little disappointed that didn't get made was a pick nose mini, but I'm happy that there's a Gray Mung mini.
Well, you never know what the future holds, is what I always say.
Right. You see how this yellow dried a little bit darker, so that's good to notice. Something you learn about your paints as you go is sometimes paints will dry differently than how they look out when they're wet.
Now, is that a function of like brand, have you found, or is it that could be true of any paint? You just kind of have to...
Yeah, it depends on what's in the paint and what the paint, every paint's a little bit different. All right, so we've got a good base coat. I need to get her cowl. I got to take glasses off for this.
All right, now we're getting serious.
Yeah. Oh, I think I messed up. All right, we'll just paint it later.
Folks, we said this earlier, but if you were not here, it would be fantastic if everybody watching liked this video, like this live stream on Shoshie's YouTube channel, and to make it a point to go over to the ElfQuest YouTube channel. It's ElfQuest by Wendy and Richard Paynes is the official ElfQuest YouTube, and there's a lot of really cool content that's already there, and we always appreciate folks liking and commenting and sharing the YouTube content from the ElfQuest page too.
And if you ever want to see me stream again, the best thing to do is subscribe and hit that bell, because then you'll actually get notified of when I go live, and that's the most reliable.
And Shoshie is on all of the socials, just like ElfQuest is as well. So you can find us both on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. We are not on Twitch for ElfQuest.
I'm
but,
no longer
so
on Twitch either, so it's okay not
Okay.
to follow me there.
Okay, well there you go.
All right, we're in a good spot to let this dry. I'm going to go touch up her face some more. Let's see. Because I did get a little bit on her. So this is why you start with the skin layer. It's the underneath the dress, and that way when you need to touch up, you really don't need to do that much. I also want to point something out. Just a coloring tip that works on minis. It's any kind of coloring books. If you're coloring with markers, I'm going to show you. So when you're coloring, let's say you have your shape or your mini or whatever, color slow on the edges, and then you've got a nice buffer area to go fast in the middle. So I just did an example.
That's a great tip.
And I do that with my minis too. Like I'll color around the edges. So this pastel dries super fast, but there's still some spots on it that are a little bit wet. All right. Whew. I'm gonna see. Let's see. I need to think. So on the reference that I showed you, there was sort of a purple color. I'm gonna see if I can't replicate that. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna paint over it. We've got this faded purple. I think it will work. I think it'll work though.
My instinct is that it is going to work, because that is part, I think, of what brings the very ethereal feel and vibe. You know, it's sort of that shadowing that happens within that sort of green dress.
This is the glaze wash I'm going to use, and I'm going to mix the purple with it so that it'll do similar stuff to what that wash, and it'll hopefully go down into the recesses and be more transparent. Because I don't want this to, I want the transparency of the green to oh yeah, this is working exactly how I want it to. I'm just going.
Skyfire. Oh, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
I was just going to read a comment from Skyfire. I've learned so much today, Sensei Shoshie. I was worried it would be tedious. It is definitely not tedious. I'm kind of enraptured watching you do this.
So
that last part was mine.
Awesome. This glaze is working exactly how I want it to. And it's tinting the green into this purple, but it's not overpoweringly so. And I can put it into the shadows of her outfit. And it does give it that kind of wispy look. Especially in the folds of her sleeves, it looks really nice. Okay, let's go on the back. Oh, I missed some. I see I missed some.
So for everybody watching, when you paint your own minis, you must share them across all of your social media platforms.
Hashtag ElfQuest minifigs.
Because we want people to see your work, and we want, even if you don't love it, we're going to celebrate it.
Yes. And remember, the object is to have fun. That's
right.
the goal, is have fun. So, all right, we're getting somewhere with this. I really like how this is going. I hope it's showing up on camera because it's so faded and my camera's a little bit washed out. Hold on, let me see if I can adjust my exposure just a smidge. Yeah, that's a little bit, you can see a little bit better with the darker exposure.
Okay, yeah.
It's just hard to see because the camera washes out anything light. Okay, I'm gonna bump it back up, and so
So Echo 624, I think, maybe just joined and wants to know what is this one?
this
And
is,
so
yeah.
go ahead. You go ahead. I'll let you answer.
This is this one is Savah, and she is basically the leader of the Sun Folk, and she's sort of the wise woman and the elder of the tribe. All right.
And Echo 624, if you are not familiar, this is a character from ElfQuest, which is a comic book series that is celebrating 45 years this year, and it's been adapted into pretty much everything under the sun, including most recently an audio adaptation. So there's a 10-episode free podcast of the first 5 issues of the ElfQuest comic that you can listen to, and these miniatures that Shoshie is painting are rewards from the crowdfunding campaign for that audio adaptation project.
Yes. So I'm going over here with this glaze of the purple, but what I will do is layer and go back over it with the green again so that my purple shadows stay there, right?
Right.
But the highlights will be back to the green. Sometimes minis, actually almost all art, often will go through an ugly stage and you'll hate it. Don't stop. Just keep pushing. What I used to say was, you can't mess it up more once you've messed up. So just push and see if you can save it.
That is so true. It's kind of the ugly duckling phase where, the potential is all there and you're just not quite there yet. And you got to let it grow into what it's going to be. And then it suddenly becomes this, mind-blowingly gorgeous thing.
Get back in here with this green.
Oh, Echo, hi. My name is David. I'm helping out with this live stream today. I work with the ElfQuest team, and I'm a lifelong ElfQuest fan. And so Shoshie invited me on to help just kind of read the comments in the chat so that she can focus on painting and talk all about ElfQuest.
Echo is actually one of my first mods that I ever had on Twitch. We haven't been in touch in a while, but it's so cool that he's here right now. We need some more of this glaze because of the chalkiness of the paint. There we go. We're starting to get some of the volumes of. So when I was in school in college, when I did figure drawing, painting and drawing fabric was one of my favorite things. And part of the reason why was because I had so much experience mimicking Wendy's clothing folds. Because everything,
oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah, everything has all these drapes, and yeah, so it made it when I went to school really easy because I already I kind of had a fundamental understanding of how cloth already folded. Oh, I'm so happy with how this is turning out.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that, Shoshie, because I have in my head like things that you need to be able to do if you're going to draw ElfQuest well, and for me, one of them is the ability to draw wolves.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
wolves are key characters in the world of ElfQuest, and like Wendy's wolves are so beautiful and they're so lifelike and realistic, even though they're a
Mm-hmm.
little bit stylized and so they're beautiful animals in ElfQuest and I think if you're going to be able to draw ElfQuest, you should spend some time learning how to draw not just wolves but other animals. And I would say right up there with that is the ability to draw beautiful fabric. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
here to tell you right now that I suck at that
Oh,
personally. It's an art goal for myself to follow in your footsteps and practice drawing, fabrics and draping and all of that because it is a really key part of ElfQuest because so many characters do have that kind of drapey, flowy kind of clothing, and it's also a perfect illustration of what we refer to as the line of beauty. It's those
yes,
beautiful
yes.
kind of S curves that Wendy is really known for in her art in general, but ElfQuest in particular. And so I would say the ability to draw wolves and the ability to get the line of beauty right, particularly with fabric, are two things that any would-be ElfQuest artist should practice.
Yes. All right, so there. Okay, so that's probably where I want to be with her. I might go back in
People
with
are
some.
loving the dress, by the way. The
Yeah,
purple shades and yeah.
I'm really happy with the two. Now I could pick at this for a lot longer.
Well, I'm glad you've mentioned that a few times that, that those of us who are going to be painting this not on camera under all of the pressure, we can take our time with it and go
Mm-hmm.
a little bit further if we so choose.
Definitely, definitely. I think this purple is really what sells it for her.
Hmm.
The purple and the mint green. Now, because I did some overbrushing with the lighter color, it feels a little chalky in some spots, so I'm going back over with the purple to kind of smooth things out. That's what's nice about acrylic is you can go back and forth with it. I'm going to add just a smidge of this Paynes gray to this purple to make it a little bit darker. And under here, I'm just going to give this a little bit darker of a purple line because that's where her sleeve is. And then she has a belt right there. I'm doing some dark lining with this darker purple.
Noelle asked, what hashtag are we posting our painted minis under? That's a good question. I think just using the plain old at or hashtag ElfQuest
Yeah.
will do the job. That's the thing that if someone's going to search on ElfQuest content, that's what they're going to look up. But you could also do hashtag ElfQuest Mini as well,
Yeah.
and just be sure to tag the whatever ElfQuest account that on the social media platform that you're using. And again, ElfQuest is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. So it's at ElfQuest in most places. So or at ElfQuest official. So that would be great. And if you do tag ElfQuest, we love to share that everybody's creative content. So
Mm-hmm.
if you do tag it, it's very likely that you'll be featured on the official ElfQuest social.
So with the darker purple, I'm going to go closer to her hands because that's where maybe there's going to be a darker shadow in the purple. And again, anywhere where there is like a new layer of fabric, I'm going to give it a shadow and underneath her arms. I just added that Paynes gray to the purple I was already working with. There we go. Oh, I lost my music. I'm going to put some more on. Hold on a second. There we go. There we go. It's so much easier to concentrate when there's just a little background music for me.
Me too.
All right. Now, you know what? Can I make a suggestion? If you do this on the ElfQuest Discord that you made for the audio movie, is maybe host like a painting night where we all get together and paint minis. and sit around and hang out and talk in Discord. That's something that I like to do.
That is a brilliant idea, and we will definitely figure out a way to make that happen.
Hold on, I need to look at my reference again. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, I put it on my phone. 1 second. I need to see what her... Okay, yeah, her belt is this darker green, and then it's got the yellow star on it. So we're going to make that a darker green. Let's see. Yes. I'm going to mix this green with this pastel I've already got going so it's not so overpowering. There we go. Perfect. That's gonna... Oh, I love her.
We do too.
Now I'm just going with this same green and I'm just hitting some of the highlights on her dress with it to kind of imply there's multiple kind of shifting colors.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go back to the face. We're ready for that. I'm going to use a darker wash. Let me see if I can find one. Here it is. This one's called Agrax Earth. No, that's we'll use the Reikland Fleshshade again. It's dark enough because it'll be going over the brown anyway. Now, Savah's features are way more delicate and fine than Redlance's, so she's in a way a little bit more difficult to paint because she's so much. Her features are smaller.
Mm-hmm.
That's why these washes are nice because they can kind of do a lot of work for you. There's a lot of people who call it talent in a bottle.
Yeah, and just seeing you use them, I see where that comes from. And again, it's something that as somebody who's never painted minis, I never would have thought. I would, before I was sitting here watching this, I just thought, well, you put the paint on and you brush it in, but having different weights of pigment, kind of thicker paint and sort of looser, lighter washes that are gonna kind of, kind of fill in those crevices and whatever to give you shadows.
Yeah,
really is a genius solution to the just sort of the fineness of these miniature figures.
So I'm going to try to go to her crown while everything is kind of drying on her face. This is a bronze metallic that I'm going to start with because this will take the place of all these dark colors. So we're going to layer this up until we get to this like gold leaf look. But we're starting out with a brown metallic paint. This bronze is okay. I need to shake it good. What happens with metallic paints is a lot of the mica will kind of settle to the bottom and it will, yeah, that's not working for me. It settles to the bottom and then you just get the medium and it's all kind of like it looks here. It looks really dark. It's not supposed to look like that.
Yeah.
Let's try. There we go. That's much better. All right.
Lisa Lannon says, thank you for doing this. I have to go, but know that this is here to watch again. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thanks for stopping by, Lisa. And Tanya says, I am gagging right now. It looks so good. Totally agree.
So
Rico Dawn says that Wendy is the epic fashionista. She inspired me to draw various fashions in my art. Love it. I'm sorry, Shoshie, you were about to say something.
I was just going to say, for those of you who aren't as experienced with like drawing or with painting, metallic metal is the way to go. And it'll be really fast and easy. You'll see.
You're a bit low on the camera.
Oh, there we go. Is that better? Here we go. Thank you. That's here to let me know. Okay, and then I need to look. I think there was gold also on her little star down here. Yes. Okay, good. So while her crown is drying, I can go on her face. And so now, I don't know if the wash did what I wanted it to do. So we're going to take that burgundy again and go into the shadows where I need a little bit more darkness. That's better. All right, so for her, I'm going to give her just a little bit of a dark line under her nose, so that way. And then I'm going to paint her lips with this burgundy as well. Again, her features are so fine and small that I might need to touch up. So now I've got the gold and I'm doing my highlights. The nose and the chin and on the cheekbones are going to be where you're going to put your highlights. If you've ever done makeup of any kind or stage makeup, it's all the places where the light is hitting. Oh yeah, that made a big difference already. She looks awesome. And then just a quick kind of overbrush on her hands to catch her fingers with the lighter color. And remember, if you get something that's too light, you can go back and hit it again with the next darkest color to bring it back down, which is what I'm going to do right now. Oh, see, it's still too light. This is so hard for her. She's so tiny. I think, like, here's my thumb and here's her face. You can see how small she is.
They call them minis for a reason.
Yes. She's a mini. All right, instead of black on her eyes, I'm going to use this burgundy to paint her eyeballs. I feel like on a dark skinned, on this particular mini, her eyes are so small that black would be way too harsh. Plus her eyes are really small. All right, I got one. One eye is always going to be easier than the other. And that's just because your dominant hand. That's why I flip it upside down.
Well, that right there is a good tip.
Yeah, flip it upside down and you'll be able to paint the other eye better.
When you first said that sentence, one eye is harder to paint, I thought you were talking about the character One Eye.
Oh, haha. One eye on the model is always going to be harder.
Yeah. I mean, it's even hard to do that when you're drawing because, again, of that dominant side. Like,
yep.
Yeah, you kind of have to do it the opposite when you're drawing the other eye, and sometimes it can get a little lopsided looking.
All right. Get this thin line of burgundy around her cowl. All right, I think I got it. Okay, now, just let me look at this reference. Yep, she's got, I didn't even notice her eyes are kind of amber, a little bit amber or pink, I can't tell. But just like I did with the other mini, we're going to make a thin oval inside of her. This is going to be so hard. Whew, my gosh. And then flip it upside down for the other eye and try to make a match.
We're all enraptured watching this.
All right, I got one eye kind of wonky, so I'm going to fix it real quick. Yeah, that's better. I think that's as good as it's going to get. Sometimes you just have to be like, it's good enough. All right, for her irises, I really want to try to paint those. I'm going to use this dark blue instead of the black because I think the black is a little bit harsh. All right, she gets tiny eyebrows too, doesn't she? Let me see. Oh yeah, teeny tiny.
Very, very...
Very pencil thin.
Pencil thin.
And they're very high on her head. Nope, they're just right over here. Okay, I'm going to try this. I'm
going to tell you right now, I'm not brave enough to even attempt to get to that level of detail, so my Savah will be eyebrowless.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little extra, I admit. One eyebrow is higher than the other. She's giving like raised eyebrow, like Spock.
There you go.
Okay, let's go back to the crown because that's going to be the fun part. Now we need that wash again because it's going to go into the shadows. Actually, I'm going to use this darker one, Agrax Earthshade. The wash will kind of creep into the crevices of the crown and shade it for us. Let that completely dry. That bubble. And then I'm going to get my golds out. Let's see. This one is called Rich Gold. The rock eyebrow. Yeah, exactly. Aw. Okay. I'm going to paint her little star here. And I'm just going to, again, I'm going to overbrush on her star. Because I want some of that darker color to kind of shine through. There we go. This is still drying. I need to look at a reference again. Hold on. Okay. For kicks, I'm going to put little tiny gold dots. I don't know how this is going to look. Again, we're just roughing it. Put little tiny gold dots on her belt. You might not even be able to see it on camera. Imagine it in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it. It looks a little bit... That one might be better actually with almost like a sparkly pigment. Let me try something else here. Let me just thin out the gold and see what happens if I just brush it. Yeah, I like that better actually. So what I did was I just kind of glazed the gold over that green, and that looks good to me. Okay, so the crown is ready. I'm going to use this as my reference. So I'm going to mix There we go. I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to, again, overbrush. And blend. Leave the bottom part of the crown a little bit more brown because it's shadowed, right? Oh yeah, that turned out really good.
Yeah, believe it or not, there's a lot of darker tones and sort of tans and browns in gold.
Now I have a metallic medium. This is really great, and actually I might kind of do a little brush of this over her whole dress. We'll see what happens. This is a metallic paint that's just a white metallic. Here's how it looks. It looks like, well, this does not look good on camera. It looks like white on camera, but imagine an opaly, like a pearlescent white.
Sure, right.
And I'm just going to go on the top of her crown.
What's the color called?
It's called metallic medium.
Okay.
Yeah, metallic medium, and it's just a white. You can mix your other other metallics with it to make them brighter. So yeah, now I'm taking my original gold and brushing that back over the metallic medium, so it'll make it more gold. Let's see what happens when I just kind of hit. Oh, I like that. So I'm hitting the tops of her dress with this metallic medium to give it that shimmery kind of look. This might be something where I should take a picture and show you guys on my phone, because I think it will show up better on my phone than on my streaming camera. Yeah, that's working really well. Just again, I'm kind of over brushing the highlights of her dress. So it's just hitting the highlights of it. Let's get the base. There we go. There we go. She's looking really nice. I don't want to hit the shadows too dark because nothing on her dress is dark. You know, she doesn't, everything is very soft shadows.
Soft is, I think, the exact right word. And I think going with softer shadows versus like something super contrasty makes a lot of sense.
I'm just going to try to get a little red tint on her lips. Maybe. There we go. Yes. I'm not happy with her eyebrow. Let's get rid of this one and make another one. This is what I mean, like, if you're not happy with something, just cover it up after it's dry and do it again.
Yeah, it's actually a lot more forgiving than I think those of us who haven't done this a lot were thinking.
All right, I feel like that's probably as good as I'm gonna get. Let's bump the contrast down so you'll be able to see her on camera better. Or bump the exposure down. There we go. And you can see kind of how I did the opaly kind of highlights on her.
Yeah,
Let me try something. I'm going to try fooling with the gain contrast. Saturation? The streaming gods do not like me today. Okay, that's better. There we go. That's probably as good as I'm going to get. So, where did I put Redlance? Here he is. So there they are together. Let me see if I can pull her off carefully. Yeah, you can see the shimmer. It's nice, isn't it? There we go. There we go. And I'll work on these a little bit more off camera.
Yeah,
But...
I'm kind of speechless. I watched you do it, and it's just like to see the finished product or close to finished product is gobsmacked is really not an overstatement. Shoshie, like you truly are magnificent. You chose a good name for your brand.
You know what's hilarious is I originally picked that as a joke because when I first started, I was not I did it tongue in cheek. You know, because I was not that good, you know.
No, it's you. Well, if you didn't feel it before when you started, we are feeling it now because it really was just an incredible treat to get to watch you do this and learn from you and be so generous with your your knowledge and your expertise in mini painting so that all of us ElfQuest fans out there can pick up a little bit of that wisdom and apply it to our own so we can not just enjoy the minis as the beautiful sculpts that they are and kind of have them unpainted, which is totally fine if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But I think after watching this, whether people watched it live or they're going to watch the video of it, it's really an invaluable resource for the ElfQuest community. So thank you so much for doing it. And I don't know, Shoshie, how you typically wrap these.
So what I will do, I will tell everybody that if you want tips on painting your ElfQuest minis or feedback, I'm in the ElfQuest Facebook group, and so you're welcome to go there. It's on Facebook, and you can always tag me in that group on your pictures, and also you can also ask me on my social media. Usually it's best to do it, if it's about ElfQuest in that group though. And yeah, so let's see. I will go ahead and tell everybody to like and subscribe and follow, and also like and subscribe and follow ElfQuest. If you get a chance to go on their website and read the comic, you will not be unhappy because it's such an amazing story. And
I echo that. And yeah, I mean, as I've mentioned a few times already, as Shoshie just said, ElfQuest is on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. So definitely please follow us in all of those places, as well as YouTube. And if you're interested in finding out more about ElfQuest, go to our website. It's elfquest.com. And Dark Horse Comics is the publisher of ElfQuest, and they've got some really great omnibus editions.
Yeah.
So if you are a new reader, that's a great place to start. If you are an older fan that maybe hasn't kept up with all of the stories over the last 45 years, and there's a lot of story out there. Those omnibus editions are also a really great place to start as well. So with that said, I'm going to thank you one more time, Shoshie, and thanks for everybody who stuck with the 3 hours of live stream and asked all the questions. And
yes, it was so awesome. This was such a great time. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put my outro on now. Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Let me see if I got it. There we go. Oop, wrong one. No. Hold on, let me do this one. There we go.
Go get your brushes, go get your paint. This Shoshie can enter my world, watch what grows. And when I'm through, why not have a go? Take your time, steady and you can do it right. Shoshie can enter my world, watch what grows.